Now, let's get into some things. The Reform Party, by its name, means reform. You will be leaving, if you run this, you believe in what? The Republican Party, I believe.
I'm a registered Republican. I'm a pretty conservative guy. I'm somewhat liberal on social issues, especially health care, etc. But I'd be leaving another party, and I've been close to that party.
Why would you leave the Republican Party?
I think that nobody's really hitting it right. The Democrats are too far left. I mean, Bill Bradley, this is seriously left. He's trying to come a little more center, but he's seriously left. The Republicans are too far right. And I don't think anybody's hitting the chord. Not the chord that I want to hear, and not the chord that other people want to hear. And I've seen it. Plus, I think there's a great lack of spirit in this country. What's happened over the last 4 years is disgusting. And I just think there's a tremendous lack of spirit. And I think the spirit has to be brought back.
You have a vice presidential candidate in mind?
Well, I really haven't gotten quite there yet.
It's
I guess
it's just
Oprah. I love Oprah. Oprah would always be my first choice.
Oprah.
Oprah, your competitor, right? Your
competitor. Oprah's a competitor.
You know what?
No
I'll tell you, she's really a great woman, though. She is a terrific woman. She's somebody that's very special. I have not even thought about it. I guess we'll see. We'll see. Maybe that's part of the whole process.
Would she be I mean, kidding aside, that you might think
if
about?
she'd do it, she'd be fantastic. I mean, she's popular, she's brilliant, she's a wonderful woman. I mean, if she'd ever do it, I don't know that she'd ever do it. She's got.
You'd ask her.
She'd be sort of like me. I mean, I have a lot of things going. She's got a lot of things going.
What a ticket
in terms
that would
of that would be a pretty good ticket. But she's a very exceptional woman.
What makes a good president?
Well, I think the leadership qualities. You know, the sad part about President Clinton, who I happen to like a lot, but he could have had a great presidency if the whole thing with Monica and Paula Jones, and the worst of all is, Linda Tripp. I mean, this woman, where she came from, I have no idea, but this is the woman from hell.
But he didn't have anything to do with Linda Tripp.
No, he didn't, but she always seems to surface, and she's just became a part of the administration.
But can't you say, in all honesty, as Reagan asked when running against Carter, haven't you done better under Clinton?
Donald
Trump,
you know what?
The
truth is that Rubin and Alan Greenspan and those appointments
it's on his watch,
and it is on his watch. And the sad part is, and what I'm saying is that he could have gone down as a really very good and maybe
you'll admit you
president.
have done well, and the country's done.
I have done well, and the country's done well from an economic standpoint. There's no question about that. And now you're going to see what happens over the next period of a year, because when the election takes place, if things aren't doing well, Larry, your Reform Party candidate has a major chance of doing something major. So you have to see what happens.
Why does Gore inherit this character question?
Well, Gore is a man that I've said before is a very underrated man. But if he keeps going the way he's going, which has been terrible, he's no longer going to be underrated.
What's he doing wrong?
Nobody knows. It's just, I think he's relying on too many people. I think he probably raised too much money, and therefore it's being taken away by too many different consultants. I mean, everybody's got a piece of him. If he'd just go back to being the regular guy that he was, I think he'd do. I mean, he got to be vice president of the United States by being Gore. And now, all of a sudden, you have 15 people tugging on his shoulders and taking money from his various contributions. I mean, if he spent $20 million, I've spent exactly $20 million less. And
what do you want in a president? You said, okay, Clinton could have been a great president, not for the character issue. And you're saying the character issue...
Well, I think it's very important. I mean, Ronald Reagan, to me, was a great president. And whether you're liberal or you're conservative, people really view him as a great president. He'll go down as a great president, not so much for the things he did, just there was a demeanor to him and a spirit that the country had under Ronald Reagan that was really phenomenal. And there was just a style and a class, and that's a big part of being president. I mean, that's a really big part of being president. Ronald Reagan had it. Eisenhower, I don't see him too much on lists of great presidents, but there was a nice time in the country. The country had a prestige, and he had a certain, demeanor. He was a quality class act. There are certain people that have that. Unfortunately, with all of the scandal in the last 4 years, and what's happening with Gore is he's really tainted by it, and he's probably the last one to be involved in that kind of a scandal. But he's still tainted by it. It's a tough
fair
problem.
or unfair, it's a fact.
Well, I mean, if he were really on his game, he'd get one of his senator friends to go and run against Bradley and him so that you could divide up the anti-Clinton/Gore vote, and he'd get in very easily.
Get somebody else.
At least he'd get the nomination.
Strategy.
Well, no, it has to be strategy, because it's not that Bradley's good. Bradley's not great. I know Bradley very well from New Jersey. I think I'm the largest employer in the state of New Jersey, and I know Senator Bradley. And he was going to be thrown out of office. This guy was not going to be reelected. And then he made the statement that I'm going not to run, and the Senate is a terrible place, and everybody in the Senate. It wasn't that he didn't want to run. The guy was going to lose. He was going to lose badly.
Well, Perot told us back in '92 the kind of president he would be if elected, that he would be decisive, he would be uninterested in pomposity, he would be at work at 8 o'clock in the morning. These are things he would do. He didn't like, not a big ribbon cutter. What kind of president would Donald Trump be?
Well, again, all those things are fine, but again, you go back to Reagan, and there is a certain pomposity, and there was a certain ribbon-cutting stature that is important for the president. I think that the whole style and look of him was just really.
Are you saying that's the kind of person you want to be?
Well, I don't say that, and I don't like to be compared to anybody, and maybe it would be unfair to them, to be honest with you, but the president has to be a great leader, and you have to lead by example. But you need leadership in this country, and we're just not having it right now. And this is going to be Gore's problem, because he is very much associated with 4 very ugly years, despite an economy. I mean, if you had a bad economy at this point, it would be a disaster out there. But you do have the one thing, you have a good economy.
Donald Trump, the multi-millionaire real estate developer, is sounding more like a politician these days than America's most grandiose and controversial builder. When he disagrees with a matter of policy, he does it in a big way. Today, he sunk $95,000 into a full-page newspaper ad appearing in many papers criticizing the administration's foreign policy. Rumblings in the Trump camp point as far as the presidency. Could the Manhattan magnate be eyeing the White House, or is he just calling a bluff? Are you a Republican, Donald?
I'm a Republican, yes.
So if there were politics, it would be as a Republican.
It would be, I guess, as a Republican, but I don't see that there will be politics.
Why the ad, then? I mean, you said you wanted to say it. There's a lot of ways you can say things. I guess an ad is one way. You could have called up shows like this who would have been trying to have you come on. Why now?
Well, it was very easy. I was tired, and I think a lot of people are tired of watching other countries ripping off the United States. This is a great country. They laugh at us. Behind our backs, they laugh at us because of our own stupidity. And the leaders, I mean, what we have a Persian Gulf situation. You saw what happened today. Billions and billions of dollars are being spent on getting oil for Japan, and they're not paying anything for it. Essentially, they're paying nothing for it. We have tankers going back and forth that our men are protecting, losing their lives. I mean, they're losing their lives, Larry. We're spending billions and billions on protection, and those tankers are going over to Japan. It's just preposterous. I watched the Kuwaiti oil minister the other day laughing as he was explaining how much money they intend to make with the Bridgeton, which has been a total disaster, the Bridgeton. And I said to myself, isn't that a shame? He's talking about how much money they're going to make, and here we are. He's smiling and laughing. Why don't we get some of it? Why is it that we're protecting? We have frogmen, we have helicopters, we have aircraft carriers, and all sorts of ships all over the Persian Gulf, so that this man and his little group can make a lot of money. I think it's ridiculous.
Well, one of the reasons we say we're doing it is because we've been doing it, and that all previous presidents have endorsed doing it. I guess the kind of thinking of an entrepreneur is because somebody else said it was right doesn't make it right, right?
Larry, the country is losing $200 billion a year. $200 billion. This country cannot continue to lose $200 billion. Japan is one of the wealthiest machines ever created. Saudi Arabia, and it's not, hey, let me tell you, I'm a big beneficiary of Japan. They buy my apartments in spades. They're fine people, but they must be, they're laughing to themselves as to what's happening over here. We're not kidding ourselves. They're laughing to themselves, Larry, as to what's happening with this country.
But Donald, a lot of people feel the way you feel, and a lot of people maybe with as much money, or certainly some people with as much money feel the way you feel. Why did you go public?
Because somebody had to, Larry. I watch it again, and it's a very important point. Japan is a money machine. Saudi Arabia is a money machine. Kuwait, these are money machines, the greatest ever created. The United States is, if it were a corporation, it would be bankrupt. It's losing $200 billion a year. For years now, it's been losing that. What right do we have to go out and defend? Why aren't these countries, these wealthy money machines, paying us for the defense of their freedom and their nations? Why aren't they paying us?
We are kind of the world's keeper, are we not?
I don't believe we should be. I think Japan should certainly make a contribution. Japan is one of the reasons they're so successful is they don't have to worry about defense, because why should they worry about defense when the United States will do it for nothing? I mean, it's crazy. Saudi Arabia, I mean, you saw what happened with Saudi Arabia. We're going through the Gulf. We have old-fashioned, obsolete minesweepers. We ask Saudi Arabia for the use of their minesweepers, which are the best made, the most modern, the best, and they say no. Who are they to tell us no? We're not going to give you our minesweepers. It's ridiculous. They're only there
They're only there for the sake of us as far as that's concerned. We are protective of Saudi Arabia. They should pay for that.
Are we going to be hearing more from Mr. Trump on issues like this as we go along?
I really don't know, Larry. This is an issue that's been bothering me. It's been bothering a lot of people that I know, and I think it's an issue that had to be brought out to the fore. The concept of America financing and paying and losing lives for countries that won't even allow us to use their ships. And these are the countries that in 24 hours they'd be wiped off the face of the earth if it weren't for America. It's ridiculous.
By the way, a couple of other things, then we'll take some calls for Donald Trump. Is it true that you're going to go to New Hampshire in October at the invitation of Mike Dunbar, who's heading a group called Draft Donald Trump?
Well, I was asked about 3 or 4 weeks ago whether or not, by a very good friend of mine, whether or not I'd go to New Hampshire. That's turned out to be now a much bigger deal than I had ever anticipated. And perhaps, I don't know, I am going. I made the commitment to go. I made the commitment about 3 weeks ago, and I will go, yes.
You will go, even though you realize now, in just stepping foot in that state, people are going to presume things.
Well, they can presume whatever they want. I have no intention of running for president, but I'd like the point to get across that we have a great country, but it's not going to be great for long if we're going to continue to lose $200 billion a year. You're going to get into the early 90s, 1990, 1991, and the whole thing's going to blow because this country cannot continue to support Japan and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and many other countries that are much wealthier than we are. We're not a wealthy country. You can't be a wealthy country when you're losing the kind of money that we're losing.
We're a debtor country. A couple of other things, then we'll break and take some calls. Don, why don't, there are some who said this, why don't people like you, you and people like you, build low-income, medium-income housing?
Well, as far as building housing is concerned and low-income housing, I've built a lot of it. I haven't recently, but I've built a lot of it. I built senior citizens housing and beautiful, beautiful housing. I built low-income housing, and I'm very proud of it. The policies of the government right now just don't allow it because really what's happened by the tax incentives that were taken away and by the lack of federal programs. You used to have federal programs, you don't have them anymore. And it really doesn't allow it to be done on any economic basis. And it's a pretty rough situation. I mean, you just don't have subsidized housing, low income, moderate income housing, and it's a really big problem.
And if they did, you would do it?
I would absolutely love to do it. I'd be honored to do it. I used to do it. I mean, people think of me in terms of Trump Tower and all the other jobs. I'm just as proud. I mean, you folks don't talk about it because maybe it's not as interesting to some people. I am, frankly, just as proud of all the low income and the senior citizen housing I built.
Well, so far, it's the only buildings I've asked about. Casinos, you're very big in Atlantic City. You're going to Vegas?
Well, I don't think so. I'm not looking to go to Las Vegas. I have stock in companies that are in Las Vegas, and I'm not particularly looking to do it. We've done a great job in Atlantic City. I'm very proud of the results. We have just about the best casinos, I think, anywhere in the world as far as that's concerned, hotel casinos, and we're very proud of it, and that's really pretty much where I want to be.
What's the drive, Donald, that you don't have to do this anymore, that keeps you wanting to build more and more?
Well, it's a creative process. I enjoy the creative process. I like building things. I like building beautiful buildings. I like doing other things. I've been doing a lot of other things. It's a creative process, Larry, and it really gives you something to do with your life, and it's something that you can feel fulfilled and proud of when you're finished, if you do a good job.
Do you want a break because of what you do? In other words, are you saying to New York and other places, I'll come in and do this, please give me what you will not give someone else?
No, I'm not looking for breaks. I think I probably would have a harder time getting breaks. I mean, you talk about Ed Koch. The man tried to fight me on so many different things, and he's failed. In each case, he's failed, and that's nice. I like beating it. I really get a charge out of beating Ed Koch. And, you know, it's just one of those things. But he's fought me on a lot of different things. He's consistently fought me, and he's consistently lost.
In other words, you don't want more or less than anyone else would get?
I don't want more or less than anybody else, no.
Donald Trump is our guest. He spoke out quite vociferously today in the New York Times and other papers in a major statement on American foreign policy. He's the noted, of course, builder, and we're going to take your phone calls for Donald Trump. Our guest, the famed developer Donald Trump of New York. We're ready to go to your phone calls. Redlands, California. Hello.
Hello, sir. Comment and a couple of quick questions. I think it would be really a big mistake for the United States to attempt to tax its allies for protection, because that would demote them to the role of a client state of the United States. And secondly, I think it would also be pretty unconstitutional, because the Congress has the authority to raise armies and support them with taxes for the defense of the United States, not to be hired out as a mercenary force.
All right, Donald?
Well, number one, it wouldn't at all be unconstitutional. And number two, if you're talking about taxing, I'm not talking about taxing. I think that people should make a contribution, and a major contribution, other countries, to this country for what we're doing to keep their freedom and to keep them free and to allow them to be free. And would you rather have that, or would you rather see this country to go totally bust in another couple of years because this country cannot afford to defend Japan and every other country in the world? It just cannot afford it.
It wouldn't be a tax. It would be more a payment in kind, like for landing space at airports, right?
It would be, you could call it anything you want.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, I don't care what it's called, but I think that Japan and all of these other countries should certainly pay. They can well afford to pay.
Donald Trump's our guest. This is Larry King Live. We go to Toronto. Hello.
Yes, good evening, Larry. My
Hi.
question for Mr. Trump, it's a two-part question relating to international trade. Is the solution to the American trade deficit to restrict trade through protectionist policies, or to train American business to be more aggressive and entrepreneurial? And I'd also like to know if Mr. Trump would support a Canadian-U.S. free trade agreement.
Well, I think, just to answer your first part, I believe it's very important that you have free trade. But we don't have free trade right now, because if you want to go to Japan or if you want to go to Saudi Arabia or various other countries, it's virtually impossible for an American to do business in those countries. Virtually impossible. And I have many friends, they go over to Japan. They can't open up anything. They need approvals, they need this, that. In the meantime, Japan comes over to this country, they're buying up Wall Street, they're buying up all of Manhattan's real estate, they're buying, which is fine as far as I'm concerned, because they're paying premium prices that put people like myself in a very good position if I ever want to sell something. So the fact is that you don't have free trade. We think of it as free trade, but you right now don't have free trade. And I support anything having to do with Canada because I think they've been one hell of a good ally.
Do you do any business in Canada?
I do a little bit of business with Canada, and the Canadian people are wonderful people, and they're with us 100%, as opposed to many other people in the world. We support so many countries that, I mean, you walk out on the airport and they say, Yankee, go home. They have signs all over, Yankee, go home, and we're giving billions. We don't give anything to our farmers. Our farmers are dying. There's no question about it. Farms that were in for generations and families, they're being taken away. The homeless are all over the streets of the major cities, the sick and the problems, and yet we'll give billions of dollars in defending countries that have 5 times more money than we can ever hope to have. It's ridiculous.
By the way, if you put up one of your properties for sale, let's say Trump Tower, would the Japanese be at the head of the line bidding for it?
They would be very tough to compete with them or some other countries, some other European countries right now because of what's happening with the dollar and the yen and the mark and the various other currencies. But the Japanese are at the forefront, and it's very, very tough to compete with them in terms of the purchase of anything in this country that's prime.
Middletown, New York, for Donald Trump. Hello.
Hi, Mr. Trump. Knowing that you have differences with Mayor Koch in New York, would you be interested in a mayoral race against him?
No, I don't want to run for the mayor of the city of New York. Being mayor of New York is certainly not an easy job, but it's a job that's very possible to be done correctly. We have a man who's not a competent mayor. I think most people that live in New York know that. He's been bad for the city. He's losing a lot of business in the city, and he shouldn't be. And he's really been a pretty big disaster, and I think that probably over the next period of time, something's going to come out where he will not be the mayor of the city of New York, hopefully much longer.
Should the mayor of the city be someone who knows business?
Well, what we need is competence. We don't have that. We have a one-line artist. That's all he is. And, you know, he's got sort of one-liners that are okay but not great. And that's all he's got going, and it's a problem. It's a problem because we have the greatest city in the world. It's an incredible, incredible city, and I'm proud of the city. And I hate to see the job that he's done because it's really been pathetic.
You have said you have offered to build a huge metropolis on the west side. NBC apparently, officials at NBC told me a couple of years ago that that's where they'd like to move. And now there are rumors that NBC may leave 30 Rock and go to New Jersey. But I had a top NBC official tell me he wanted to move to your plan on the west side. Where is that now?
Well, I think we have a real good chance. You know, again, no thanks to Ed Koch, but I think we have a real good chance of getting NBC to stay in New York, and we're fighting very hard for it. We have a very, very good shot, and I anticipate that they'll be making the decision over the next 4 or 5 weeks, and it'll be a very, very big decision, very important to the future of New York City.
Lowell, Massachusetts, for Donald Trump. Hello.
Yes, hello, Larry.
Hi.
Donald, first of all, I want to commend your stand in regards to the other nations should take part in the expense of helping the Persian Gulf.
Thank
But my
you.
question to you is the following. You are a very wealthy man and have many contacts. Why can't you do more for the hungry and the homeless in New York?
Well, I
Thank
think it's a very good question, and I'd like to. The
fair.
problem that you have, and you have a major problem, the problem that you have is it's such a big, big dilemma. you really need federal government assistance, not even city government. The city governments have to be competent, capable, etc. But you really need the federal government to step in. That's why it bothers me so much that when we give this kind of money to the wealthiest countries in the world, and yet for our own people, the homeless, the sick, the poor, the farmers who are really going through hell right now, those people we're not helping. And why should we? I think it's ridiculous. And this country shouldn't be raising taxes. We ought to be lowering taxes. We should have a surplus, not a deficit. Because the kind of money that I'm talking about, and you can call them, as the gentleman before said, you can call it a tax, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but those countries should be paying us major billions of dollars, and you won't have any deficits whatsoever, and then we'll be able to help the poor and the sick and the homeless and the farmers and everybody else.
Donald, what were you hearing today after that ad appeared? What were people telling you? I imagine you got tons of calls.
It was unbelievable, to be perfectly honest. I put the ad in thinking maybe a couple of politicians would see it, and maybe they'd say, hey, you know what? That happens to be a great idea, and he happens to be right. We've gotten thousands of phone calls. We've gotten tremendous support. I've never seen anything like it. I have literally never dreamt that this kind of reaction could have happened from taking a newspaper ad essentially saying, hey, we're making a mistake, and this is what we should be doing.
West Patterson, New Jersey. Hello.
Hello, I'd like to, hi Larry, I want to ask Mr. Trump a question about the Japanese, and if they keep on buying up all the real estate in Hawaii and in New York, won't it come to a point where they will be dictating our policy and we'll be afraid to move against them? I think it's almost to that point now, isn't it?
There's a book out, Don, that says that already exists, that Japan is, in a sense, wielding the rope with us.
I believe it already is true to a large extent, and there's no reason for it to be. If we had the right people, if we had the right people with the right instincts and business ability, there'd be no way that that could happen. And that's why I hate to see what I see. By the way, I like the Japanese very much. I do tremendous amounts of business with them. They do very well as far as I'm concerned. A man just bought a $21 million apartment in one of the buildings I own.
A what?
A $21 million. He bought 7 apartments, a Japanese man, wonderful man. He bought 7 apartments, put them together. He's building a $21 million apartment. That's without the cost of construction, by the way. Plenty of money. I like them very much, but they laugh at us. They're laughing at this country and the way the country is being managed. And they should be laughing.
Donald,
they should be laughing.
In a $3 million apartment, if you got apartment 3B, and 3A is hanging a picture, you wouldn't hear that in 3B, would you?
Well, hopefully not in the kind of buildings I live
Okay,
in.
now it's just a little question from
I know,
someone. Okay,
I know.
okay. Ocean City, New Jersey. Hello.
Yeah, Larry and Donald, how are you doing? I
How are
have
you?
a comment and a question, then I'll hang up and I'll listen.
Go ahead.
First off, I really enjoy having Mr. Trump here. As a 32-year-old business person myself, I think he is a tremendous role model for young people like myself that look at him and write down their goals and strive to be better. That's the comment. The question is, I've always felt that NATO and West Germany, I mean, we have all those troops over there. I feel that they should pay their way. And then my second question is, and I'll hang up, is what other topic is near and dear to his heart? Thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I agree with you on NATO. I agree with you on other countries. I don't want to single out Japan. I don't want to single out Saudi Arabia, but these are countries that people understand the kind of wealth we're talking about, and I will single them out. But there are many other countries and taking tremendous advantage of this, including NATO. If you look at the payments that we're making to NATO, they're totally disproportionate with everybody else's, and it's ridiculous. As far as other causes that are near and dear, this is the cause, because if we can solve this, then we're able to take care of something that I consider to be ultimately of ultimate importance, and that is the homeless situation, that is the farmers, that is the sick. We don't have any money. This country is busted. And it's busted because we're doing things that we shouldn't be doing. If we had business ability in this country, we'd be making lots of profit, so-called surplus profit. And that profit, that money, could be going to defend and I literally mean defend our homeless and our poor and our sick and our farmers. And that's where we ought to be spending the money, not giving it to countries that don't give a damn for us to start off with.
Give me a development forecast for the rest of the 80s, good or bad, for buildings.
I think it's going to be good in New York City. It's been bad in a lot of other places. It's going to get bad unless we do something about this horrible, horrendous deficit. You cannot continue to lose $200 billion a year. It's going to be so bad that people will never, I really believe this could be much, much worse, unfortunately, than recession. This could be the step beyond. I hate to use the word depression, but if we don't solve the $200 billion a year loss, which is exactly what we have, this country is going to have some very, very serious problem in the early 1990s.
One other thing, could the next presidency be a one-term presidency because of that?
I think the next president of the United States could have some very, very, very serious problems. It's going to be, I think, it's going to be a very difficult presidency because of the problems that we're talking about right now.
And you don't want it to be Donald Trump?
I do not want it to be Donald Trump, but I do want the problems to be solved, Larry.
Thanks, Donald. See you in New York.
Thank you, Larry.
He said, I think Donald Trump is an artful liar. I think he is a greedy, vicious, and arrogant man.
Well, I don't know, is that supposed to be a compliment or not? I'm not sure.
I hope that New York City has a different mayor at some point, because I think Ed Koch is a total disaster. He's been a very bad mayor for the city. People realize now that Merv made a bad deal. It's unfortunate that he's taken a fall, but he has taken the fall. Nothing much I can do about it.
Donald loves that perception. I won. He is still, you know, a year later standing in New York going, I won. He wants to make sure everybody in America knows he won.
Mr. Trump, what's left in your life? You're 33 years old. You're worth all this money. You say you didn't say that you want to be worth $1 billion.
No, I really don't. I just want to keep busy and keep active.
Could $1 billion buy the White House? What do you think?
Well,
Does
I don't
money
think it can.
give you...
I know a lot of the politicians. I like a lot of the politicians. They're friends of mine.
Trump has said, quite seriously, that he's a good enough bargainer to negotiate a nuclear disarmament treaty with the Russians.
This is not a wealthy country. People think America, you know, wealth, this and that. The Japanese are saying that. What a wealthy country. I mean, they're saying it and they're laughing. Country's losing $200 billion a year.
We ought to go in, the next time they fire so much as a bullet at one of our ships, we ought to go in and take over their oil.
We'll probably sell an extra 10,000 season tickets, and that's a lot of tickets.
Do you have the genes to be a successful politician?
Well, you never really know. I think I'm pretty outspoken, and that's not probably a good thing in terms of a politician, but it's a good thing if you ever got elected, you can really do a job. I believe that perhaps I'm portrayed differently than I actually am. I believe I'm portrayed in a rougher sense than the actual product. And I hope that's true, because I hope the actual product is a lot more mellow than the portrayal.
And that may be his biggest asset of all. When people attack Trump, they reinforce the version of Trump that Trump wants people to see. And inevitably, that keeps Trump's name in the news.
That doesn't matter because I'm not running for office.
You took out a full-page ad in major U.S. newspapers last year criticizing U.S. foreign policy. What would you do differently, Donald?
I'd make our allies, forgetting about the enemies you can't talk to so easily, I'd make our allies pay their fair share. We're a debtor nation. Something's going to happen over the next number of years with this country, because you can't keep going on losing $200 billion, and yet we let Japan come in and dump everything right into our markets and everything. It's not free trade. If you ever go to Japan right now and try to sell something, forget about it, Oprah. Just forget about it. It's almost impossible. They don't have laws against it. They just make it impossible. They come over here, they sell their cars, their VCRs, they knock the hell out of our companies. And hey, I have tremendous respect for the Japanese people. I mean, you can respect somebody that's beating the hell out of you, but they are beating the hell out of this country. Kuwait, they live like kings. The poorest person in Kuwait, they live like kings. And yet they're not paying. We make it possible for them to sell their oil. Why aren't they paying us 25% of what they're making? It's a joke.
This sounds like political presidential talk to me, and I know people have talked to you about whether or not you want to run. Would you ever?
Probably not, but I do get tired of seeing the country ripped off.
Why would you not?
I just don't think I really have the inclination to do it. I love what I'm doing. I really like it.
Also, it doesn't pay as well.
No, it doesn't. But, you know, I just probably wouldn't do it, Oprah. I probably wouldn't, but I do get tired of seeing what's happening with this country. And if it got so bad, I would never want to rule it out totally, because I really am tired of seeing what's happening with this country, how we're really making other people live like kings, and we're not.
What do you think of this year's presidential race, the way it's shaping up?
Well, it's going to be very interesting. I think that probably George Bush has an advantage in terms of the election. I think that probably people would say that he's got like that little edge in terms of the incumbency, et cetera, et cetera. But I think Jesse Jackson's done himself very proud. I think Michael Dukakis has done one hell of a job. And George Bush has done a hell of a job. You know, they all went in there sort of as semi-underdogs, including George Bush, and they've all come out. I think people that are around all three of those candidates can be very proud of the jobs they've done.
You've said, though, that if you did run for president, you believe you'd win.
Well, I don't know. I think I'd win. I tell you what, I wouldn't go in to lose. I've never gone in to lose in my life. And if I did decide to do it,
I think I'd be inclined, I would say that I would have a hell of a chance of winning, because I think people, I don't know how your audience feels, but I think people are tired of seeing the United States ripped off. And I can't promise you everything, but I can tell you one thing, this country would make one hell of a lot of money from those people that for 25 years have taken advantage. It wouldn't be the way it's been, believe me.
There are all these rumors. Are you or are you not going to run for the presidency? You're a straight talker. You don't take any crap. You tell it like it is. You've always been totally honest with me. What's the answer?
I was honest. I certainly was. I chose you as my celebrity apprentice. The country is doing very poorly. It just can't do much worse. We're not respected anywhere in the world. I am seriously thinking about it. I won't make a decision till June, but I will make a decision. And it may surprise people, frankly, but I will make a decision sometime prior to June. I love this country. I hate what's happened to this country. We're a laughingstock throughout the world. We're not respected. When you look at what's happening in various places that we've always supported and, frankly, that we got along with, they're the places that are collapsing. You don't see the other places collapsing. A lot of that is a lack of respect for our country, Piers. And you know how I feel. You know very much how I feel. We just don't have it anymore as a country. You look at what China's doing to us, how they're just ripping us left and right. They're taking our jobs. We're rebuilding China. Worse than China is OPEC. They wouldn't be there except for us. 12 men sit around the table. They set the price of fuel. They set the price of $3.50 for your car right now, a gallon. Guess what? That's going to be $5, $6, and $7 very soon, because there's nobody here that calls them and says, fellas, you better not do it.
So let me assume that you're president for a moment. And I've got a funny feeling you are going to run, because I think you think your time may have come and that there's an opportunity for you, particularly with the Republicans in certain disarray. You know, you have Sarah Palin and you have the moderates, and there may well be a middle ground for you to storm through if you wanted to do that. Assuming you're president, what are the top priorities for President Trump?
Well, I think the first thing I do is announce very strongly that we're going to tax Chinese products, 25% tax on all Chinese products. They will come to the table immediately. They will stop manipulating their currency, which they're doing. It's very hard for our companies to compete with China because of the manipulation of their currency. I buy a lot of products. I'm building buildings all over the place. I buy glass and steel and lots of other things. It's very hard for our countries to compete with China. We make better products than them. By the way, that's the most important thing. We make better products. You look at their sheetrock, making people sick and killing people all over the country. Jobs closed up. The sheetrock was...
You see them as the enemy, don't you, China?
I see them as the enemy.
See,
and by the way, they know they're the enemy. They are the enemy. They say they're the enemy.
Yeah, but they're not an enemy in the sense that they don't want to kill you, right? They want to kill you in business.
They want to take over this country economically.
But that's different to wanting to kill you, like an Al-Qaeda or something.
Well,
see, when I hear you say enemy,
it's very bad.
No, but when I hear you say enemy, I think it's too strong a word. They're a business competitor who, at the moment, is out-competing America, aren't they?
They are not really out-competing. They're cheating. When you cheat, and we have people that don't know what to do because we have the wrong people in office, that's not out-competing.
Do you think we have smart enough people to deal with the Chinese and the Indians and these new competitors out there in business?
I think they're smart, but I don't think they have any savvy. They don't have the savvy. They don't have what it takes. We should put our best business leaders. You know who we have negotiating with the Chinese? Diplomats. You know what a diplomat is? A person that from a young age is trained how to be nice. In other words, you could never be a diplomat. Okay? But everybody said he should be fired. Every week they wanted me to fire this guy. I couldn't fire him because he was so smart. I didn't want to fire him.
I wouldn't be here without you.
That's right. No, I mean, you're terrific. Frankly, you'd be a very good negotiator. I'd have you any day.
Yeah, but so would you see. This is why I'm interested about your presidential possible campaign, because I think we do need people like you running trading negotiations and diplomacy, frankly, with these countries. Because it seems to me at the moment, the Chinese thing, it's not a military threat. It's a business threat, and they are doing it better and faster and cheaper than anybody else in the world. I went to Shanghai recently. I was just stunned by what I found. 25 million people in that country, in that city, just going crazy for business. And they just wanted to be number one. There are towns in China that sell 95% of the world's duvets. You know, they manufacture 85% of the world's buttons. Now, I don't think that's the enemy. I think it's a potential business friend, isn't it? Can't we work with them?
I don't think they're friends. I think they're enemies. I deal with Chinese. I just sold an apartment to a Chinese person for $33 million a short while ago, a couple of months ago.
I mean, I'm supposed to like the Chinese, but I understand the Chinese, and I deal with them all the time. Now, this is before they thought I might run for president. They consider our leaders extremely stupid people. They cannot believe what they get away with. Whether it's the Olympics where they put people underage and they say, no, 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 and then we find out it was true, and they say, oh, we just didn't know. Or whether they have the beautiful girl singing the national anthem, their national anthem, but it wasn't her singing. So many different things. I mean, the Chinese are looking to put us under. And believe me, they are not our friends. I'm surprised at you because you're not somebody that's easily misled or misguided.
Well, here's what I think.
They
why
are not our friends.
Why can't America do to the Chinese what they do to America, which is they make a lot of goods that Americans want, and they make them cheaply, and they make them fast? Why can't America start going back to its great manufacturing days and actually target in China stuff that they need from America? They need big machinery, for example. That could be made here, and that could be sold at a good profit and create jobs in America. But I don't see people in America taking that position.
Piers, you have to level the playing field. I buy so many products, glass as an example, a curtain wall for a building, and they all come in. And 90% of the companies with the glass are coming in from China. I don't want to buy glass from China, but our companies can't compete, not because they're not good, not because they're not even better, but because of the fact that the Chinese are manipulating their currency. They make it very, very tough for us to compete. Now, what I would say, how do you solve that problem? They're never going to solve it. They're never going to treat us well unless we do something strong. Here's what happens.
This is American glass, by the way.
You don't know that.
No, it is.
It's actually plastic.
It is American
glass. It's actually plexiglass. But
plastic glass.
It's almost. You're almost.
Nearly American glass.
I feel better with plexiglass. But the fact is that the Chinese are looking to do damage to us economically. They're also building up a military. They're now starting their own aircraft manufacturing, which is going to be very bad for Boeing because, you know, they come in with this phony deal about $40 billion worth of airplanes, which is nothing by comparison to what they're cheating us out of. Now, I hate to use strong words, but that's what it is. And if you read the real economists and the real people that know what's going on, it's an unfair playing field. So here's what happens. You said, what would I do? I would immediately announce a tax of 25%. The first thing that's going to happen is the Chinese are going to call.
So you'd have a trade war?
We don't have free trade. You know, I believe in free trade, right? But we don't have free trade. We have very, very unfair trade. I call it unfair trade. I would tax them 25%. They would come to the table immediately. The other thing I'd do is I'd get our best business leaders. I wouldn't use the diplomats. I'd use the killers on Wall Street, of which I know every one of them. I would put this one in charge of negotiating with China. I'd put this one in charge of negotiating with India. We would do very well. We have the greatest business people in the world, but we don't use them.
Before we go to a break, let me just put one thing to you. In business, you can be ruthless. I've seen it, and you're successful because of it. You kill competitors, don't you? Aren't the Chinese just behaving like Donald Trump? And don't we just need more people like you to compete with them?
You need people that know how to deal with the Chinese, and we don't have those people. The president of China comes in, we give him a five-star dinner at the White House. I don't give my people that are not fair to me five-star dinners. I wouldn't have given them a five. I would have said, come to my office, let's talk. And if we don't work out a deal, we send them to McDonald's and send them back.
Donald, I want to ask you, because the next time I see you, you could be the president of the United States. I just wanted to know if there's something we could do that's just not presidential, really, or something that we can do now that we're just both civilians. Like...
Like what? This is... I'm not liking the sound of this. Go ahead.
Can I mess your hair up?
The answer is yes, but the people in New Hampshire, where I'm going to be in about an hour from now, I hope they're going to understand. Okay?
You say yes?
Go ahead, with my hairspray.
The United States, Canada, and Mexico has signed a new trade agreement updating NAFTA.
That's right.
Now, one of the parts of it has to do with auto workers, auto parts. Is that in any way going to specifically address one of the issues the United States has with GM closing plants and 14,000 losing jobs?
Well, it is, and it's not only that, it's going to keep auto companies from moving. One of the things I really wanted is plants and auto companies and just general, I mean, jobs, factories. I don't want them leaving the United States. That was very important to me, and we're not leaving the United States. So I think one of the strongest elements of the new, I call it the USMCA, one of the really important things is you won't see companies leaving once that gets signed. We have to get it through Congress, and if it gets through, which I think it will, that'll be great. And if it doesn't, we're very happy the way it is now.
As you call out China as one of the countries you say is ripping off the United States, China's global footprint is expanding. They're all over North Africa. They're building a huge port in Pakistan. They have great deals, investment deals in Panama and Latin America, sort of coming very close to the United States geographically. Do you trust the strategic goals of China, or are you a little bit worried?
Well, I think they're going to have less money than they have right now because the deal that I'm making, if you look at, we have $250 billion right now at 25%. That means we're going to be taking in billions and billions of dollars, plus I can double that up and then I can double it again. And they could never do what they did in the past with other presidents because, and you see what's happening. I mean, China is, I don't want to do this, but they are not doing very well now compared to what they were doing. And again, I think that we are doing well. We picked up $11.7 trillion in worth since my election, and China's lost a great deal of worth. And we are now a much bigger economy than China, which a lot of people don't know, but we're a much bigger and really a much more powerful economy than China.
But as a national security point, with their investment in Latin America and all over the world, it does seem that they're making a bigger footprint around the world.
I know, but they have a debt problem and they have to pay for that debt. It's a tremendous amount of money that they're spending. Do I like it? Probably not, but I also know it's very expensive for them and a lot of those places aren't going to work out.
You were going to, or at least you had considered meeting with President Putin, and you've declined to. Had you met with him, what was going to be on your agenda with the president?
Well, I just said that, frankly, in light of what happened with Ukraine, with the ships and the sailors, it just wouldn't be the right time. But I will meet with him. I think we have a very good relationship, and I think we're going to have a very good relationship with Russia and China and everyone else. I mean, I think it's important. So I'll meet with him at the appropriate time.
What do you think he's thinking about doing with Ukraine? Why did he seize the sailors and the vessels?
I can't read his mind, and nobody can, and he knows what he wants to do, but we can't allow certain things to happen. And, it happened, and I just can't be a part of it.
All right. One of the issues of a global economy is climate change. That's a discussion here. What's your position on climate change and how it has an effect on the economy worldwide?
Very simple. I want the cleanest air and the cleanest water on the planet. I want crystal clean water, and that's what we have. We've been doing very well with respect to the environment, and that's what I want. But I'm not going to put the country out of business trying to maintain certain standards that probably don't matter. When you look at China and when you look at other countries where they have very, foul air, they have not good air, that comes over to the United States. People don't want to talk about it, but it comes over. So we're going to be clean, but they're not, and it costs a lot of money. Well, the fact is we are absolutely clean, but we're not going to spend trillions of dollars and make it good for others, but not make it good for, I have a very simple policy. It's called America First. At the same time, we're going to be a great neighbor to the world, but we have to treat ourselves fairly. So that's the way it is.
All right, now our domestic economy. Next week there's a vote possibly on a government shutdown. First of all, do you think there is going to be a U.S. government shutdown, and does that have any sort of global economic impact?
Well, I can't tell you if there's going to be a shutdown because nobody knows, but I will tell you we're going to have border security. We're going to have a lot of border security. You saw what we did with all of the caravans coming up, and now they're starting to head out. They're starting to go back. But we are going to have security. We're not going to let people come into our country illegally. We're going to have people come in on merit. We need people. We have the lowest unemployment rate we've had in 51 years. We need people in this country. We have companies moving in. In fact, Prime Minister Abe of Japan just told me they're moving 2 big car companies. They're going to be opening up 2 massive plants. You don't hear that often, but a lot of that is happening. You hear about a General Motors, and I don't know what happened with General Motors, but the trend is exactly the opposite. And I will say this, our economy has never done better. We're doing unbelievable numbers. You see that. And a lot of good things are happening.
$5 billion is what you want for the wall, this go-around. So far, Congress is saying that it won't. So what happens?
We'll have to see what happens.
Are you willing to, is it negotiable for you?
Look, I'll just tell you this. We're going to have border security. And if we're not going to have border security, some very tough things are going to happen. But we're going to have border security. We can't have people pouring into our country like they have over the last 10 years. And you see what's happening when you have MS-13 and these gang members. And look at the caravan. Now they have over 650 people that are absolutely stone-cold criminals. I don't want them in our country. I'm not going to have it. You don't have borders. You don't have a country, Greta. And I'm not going to have it.
All right. One last question, and I'll give you a chance to educate there, or at least talk about the American media. What is it the U.S. media collectively doesn't understand about the economy? When you look at things, you hear our reporting. Any thoughts about our reporting?
Well, I think they understand the economy. They know how well we're doing. They just don't like to say it because that's good for me. So they don't want to say it. You know, look, I call it fake news. I don't say the media. I say you have so much false reporting. But we have a phenomenal economy. They know that. Look, we have the best unemployment numbers as a group that we've ever had. You look at African American unemployment and Asian and Hispanic American. You look at all of it, they're the best numbers in history. The best, I mean, these are historic lows. So the media knows how well we're doing. They tend not to want to write it.
So you like discussing the economy of these world leaders?
I do. I mean, we have the best economy in the world. Actually, every leader came up to me virtually, and they said, congratulations on the great economy.
Mr. President, nice to see you.
Thank you, Greta.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Thank you very much.
A federal judge who you appointed has just ruled that you must give CNN reporter Jim Acosta his press pass back. Your reaction to the ruling?
It's fine. I mean, it's not a big deal. What they said, though, is that we have to create rules and regulations for conduct, et cetera, et cetera. We're doing that. We're going to write them up right now. It's not a big deal. And if he misbehaves, we'll throw him out, or we'll stop the news conference. Actually,
what are your rules going to be? What is it that you're saying?
They're doing them now.
This is over the line, and you lose your
they're
press
doing them now. I mean, we'll have rules of decorum. You know, you can't keep asking questions. We had a lot of reporters in that room, many reporters in that room, and they were unable to ask questions because this guy gets up and starts, you know, doing what he's supposed to be doing for him and for CNN, and you know, just shouting out questions. But I will say this: look. Nobody believes in the First Amendment more than I do. And if I think somebody's acting out of sorts, I will leave. I'll say, thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate you coming, and I'll leave. And those reporters will not be too friendly to whoever it is that's acting up.
Why didn't you call on Acosta in the first place? I mean, there seems to me there's a simple solution here. Just don't call on him.
Actually, I like to do it, but in many cases, I don't. He'll stand up. He's unbelievably rude to Sarah Huckabee, who's a wonderful woman. Unbelievably rude. And I see that, and I actually ask her the same. Why do you call on these people that are so nasty? And I think one of the things we'll do is maybe turn the camera off that faces them, because then they don't have any airtime. Although I'll probably be sued for that, and maybe, you know, win or lose it, who knows? I mean, with this stuff, you never know what's going to happen.
Let's get to the bigger issue. In 2017, last year, you tweeted this, and I want to quote it accurately. The fake news media is not my enemy. It is the enemy of the American people.
It's true, 100%. Not the media. I'm glad you're finally quoting it correctly, because they like to leave the fake news.
Okay, but that's what you said.
The fake news. So but the people that are supporting me in particular, they're very smart people. They're hardworking, brilliant, great people. They know when the news is fake, and they get angry when they see all of the fakeness. Frankly, the networks.
There have been people who've been critical of other presidents. No president has liked his press coverage. John Kennedy in your Oval Office canceled the subscription to the New York Herald Tribune. Nobody called it the enemy of the American people.
Chris, I'm calling the fake news is the enemy. It's fake. It's phony.
But a lot of times, sir, it's just news you don't like.
No, it's not. No. I don't mind getting bad news if I'm wrong. If I do something wrong, like, for instance, the cemetery, I was not allowed to go because of the Secret Service, because they expected to take a helicopter. Okay. They had zero visibility. They said, sir, we are totally unequipped for you to go. In addition to that, the cemetery was far too far away from Air Force One, which is sort of like a control center where you had to be near. Not one paper that I saw wrote it that way. They said I stayed out of it because of the rain. And yet, the following day, I made a speech at the American Cemetery. It was pouring. It wasn't even really raining the first day, but the fog was tremendous. okay?
But, sir, leaders in authoritarian countries like Russia, China, Venezuela, now repress the media using your words.
I can't talk for other people. I can only talk for me. I will tell you.
But you're seen around the world as
Chris,
a beacon for repression, not
Chris,
for...
I'm not talking about you, but you sometimes maybe, but I'm not talking about you. The news about me is largely phony. It's false. Even sometimes they'll say, sources say. There is no source in many cases. In many cases there is.
I understand you don't like your coverage.
No.
Can I just bring the bigger
94%
Can I bring the bigger issue up?
Yeah.
Bill McRaven, retired admiral, Navy SEAL, 37 years, former head of U.S. Special Operations.
Hillary Clinton fan.
Special Operations.
Excuse me, Hillary Clinton fan.
Who led the operations, commanded the operations that took down Saddam Hussein and that killed Osama bin Laden, says that your sentiment is the greatest threat to democracy in his lifetime.
He's a Hillary Clinton backer and an Obama backer. And frankly,
he was a Navy SEAL.
Wouldn't it have been nice if we got Osama bin Laden a lot sooner than that? Wouldn't it have been nice? You know, think of this. Living in Pakistan, beautifully in Pakistan, in what I guess they considered a nice mansion. I don't know, I've seen nicer. But living in Pakistan, right next to the military academy, everybody in Pakistan knew he was there. And we give Pakistan $1.3 billion a year. And they don't tell him. They don't tell him.
You're not even going to give them
years.
credit for taking down bin Laden?
They took him down, but look. There's news right there. He lived in Pakistan. We're supporting Pakistan. We're giving them $1.3 billion a year, which we don't give them anymore, by the way. I ended it because they don't do anything for us. They don't do a damn thing for us. I'm totally in favor of the media. I'm totally in favor of free press. We've got to be fair press. When it's fake...
But the president get to decide what's fair and what's not.
I can tell what's fair and not. And so can my people, and so can a lot of other people.
I understand that, but...
When you do something very good, and they write it badly, and this is consistently, when you... As an example, rarely do they talk about...
Barack Obama whined about Fox News all the time, but he never said we were the enemy of the people.
Well, no, he didn't talk about the news. He didn't talk about anything. I'm only saying it very differently than anyone's ever said it before. I'm saying fake news, false reporting, dishonest reporting, of which there is a lot, and I know it. See, I know it because I'm a subject of it. A lot of people don't know it, but when I explain it to them, they understand it. And Chris, you know that better than you don't have to sit here and act like a perfect little, wonderful, innocent angel. I know you too well. I knew your father too well. That's not your gene. But let me tell you,
I think some of the coverage of you, sir, and I've said it on the record, is biased. But I don't think that
most of it is biased.
I don't know, but the idea that you call us the enemy of the people.
I'm not calling you that.
I'm talking about we're all together.
You don't understand it.
We're all together.
No. I'm not calling you.
It doesn't matter whether you call. When you call CNN and the New York Times,
I am calling,
and we're in solidarity, sir.
I am calling fake news. Fake reporting is what's tearing this country apart. Because people like things that are happening, and they're not hearing about it.
Where do you rank yourself in the pantheon of great presidents? There's Lincoln and Washington, there's FDR and Reagan. Do you make the top 10?
I think I'm doing a great job. We have the best economy we've ever had.
So where do you rank yourself?
We're doing really well. We would have been in war with North Korea if, let's say, that administration continued forward. I would give myself, look, I hate to do it, but I will do it. I would give myself an A+. Is that enough? Can I go higher than that?
Can you envision a situation, you talk about 6 more years, can you envision a situation well into your second term where you think that you're so good for the country and so essential for the progress of the country that you would try to amend the Constitution so you could serve a 3rd term?
No.
Why not?
This won't happen. It's not. I think the 8-year limit is a good thing, not a bad thing.
You've talked a lot already about the cemetery and the fact that you didn't go because it was a security concern and you did go the next day. Here's the thing.
No, excuse me. Not security concern. They wouldn't allow me to go.
I understand.
They said, sir, Secret Service said, sir, you cannot go. We are not prepared. You cannot go because it was supposed to be a helicopter, but the helicopter couldn't fly because of zero visibility. Okay, they said, sir, you cannot go.
But here's the question. You're back in Washington on Monday, Veterans Day. Why don't you go across the river to Arlington for that ceremony? Barack Obama went every year he was here in D.C.
I should have done that. I was extremely busy on calls for the country. We did a lot of calling, as you know.
But this is Veterans Day.
I probably, you know, in retrospect, I should have. And I did last year, and I will virtually every year. But we had come in very late at night, and I had just left literally the American Cemetery in Paris, and I really probably assumed that was fine. And I was extremely busy because of affairs of state, doing other things.
Why?
But I would have done it.
Why haven't you visited our troops serving in war zones in Iraq and Afghanistan in the 2 years you've been in office as Commander-in-Chief?
Well, I think you will see that happen. There are things that are being planned. We don't want to talk about it because of, obviously, because of security reasons and everything else, but there are things that are planned. As you know, I was very much opposed to the war in Iraq. I think it was a tremendous mistake. It should have never happened. You're right. I don't think anybody's been more with the military than I have as a president in terms of funding, in terms of all of the things I've been able to get them, including the vets. I don't think anybody's done more than me. I've had an unbelievable busy schedule, and I will be doing it. On top of which, you have these phony witch hunts. On top of which, I mean, we've just been very busy, but I will be doing that.
Just before the midterms, you said your biggest regret is that perhaps you should have had a softer tone in your 2 years as president. But since then, some could argue you've been on a tear. At the press conference the day after the election, you mocked some of the Republican congressmen who lost, not embracing you.
Mia Love gave me no love, and she lost. Too bad. Sorry about that, Mia.
You went after 2 African-American reporters and basically said that they were dumb.
The same thing with April Ryan. I watch her get up. I mean, you talk about somebody that's a loser. She doesn't know what the hell she's doing.
Do you want them to rein in Robert Mueller?
What a stupid question that is. What a stupid question. But I watch you a lot. You ask a lot of stupid questions.
Question. I was in St. Joe's, Missouri this last week, and I was talking to a lot of loyal Republicans. They love what you've done to the economy. They love the fact that you have basically put ISIS out of business. The one thing they say is, why do you have to be so divisive? Why don't you do more to bring the country together?
I think that if I was very different, I wouldn't have gotten what we had to get. We got the biggest tax cuts in history. We got Anwar approved. We got rid of the individual mandate, which was the most unpopular thing you can imagine, health care. I got rid of it. Everybody said it would be impossible to get rid of it. And many, you know, the regulations. I think if I was, more modified, more moderate in that sense, I don't think I would have done half of the things that I was able to get completed. With that being said, other than you have to have a certain ability to fight back, and as you know, people have, they take strong stands on me both ways, love and hate. I'd like to see it a little bit maybe more right down the middle. But tone is something that is important to me. But a lot of times you can't practice tone because you have people coming at you so hard that if you don't fight back in a somewhat vigorous way, you're not going to win. And we have to win. This country has to win. We have a lot of victories coming. And I think if I go too low-key, we're not going to have those victories.
Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris.
Very much appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Here we are, just about 3 weeks, actually 3 weeks exactly today from midterms.
That's right.
What's your prediction?
Well, first of all, it's very exciting. Second of all, I think we're going to do really well. And I don't want to make predictions. I know that my poll numbers are terrific, although if you watch certain cable stations, they try and make them look less than they are. Mm-hmm. But we have great poll numbers. We have tremendous turnout at these rallies, thousands and thousands of people, more than we can hold. In every case. I mean, there's no case where that doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. There's enthusiasm like we had at, in the last election, 2016, which was quite a spectacular day and evening. I think we have a lot of enthusiasm. I keep hearing about the enthusiasm, the blue wave, but I think we have tremendous enthusiasm. I think Justice Kavanaugh, the way he was treated, he's an outstanding human being, an outstanding man of great accomplishment. And the way those Democrat senators treated him was horrible. Was horrible by any standard.
Were you shocked
The
at
leaking,
that?
the lying, the disgusting things they were saying to him, the false accusations that were made. The third one, this lightweight Avianti bringing up a person using gangbangs and everything else. I mean, the stuff that was said, and this man didn't even know what they were talking about. It was a disgrace to our country. And I'll tell you what, since that, we've been energized anyway. But we're more energized since Justice Kavanaugh. And now he is Justice Kavanaugh. We're proud of it, too. He's going to be a great one. And I really think that had an impact. But even before that, we had tremendous energy. So I think we're going to do well. Now, who knows? I mean,
But a lot of that energy
history
is for
says
you.
the opposite. You know
Right?
that.
Yeah. No, but a lot of that energy is for you. So when you go and there's tens of thousands of people showing up in one of these stadiums, they're coming to see you. How do you translate that into excitement for the candidates?
So I've had people come up to me and say, sir, I will never vote in the midterms because you don't like Congress. Actually, I like the Republicans in Congress. They have worked hard. We don't really have a majority. If you look, I mean, we have a majority by a vote. I always joke, if somebody had a cold, we no longer have. If they have a cold, we don't have a majority anymore. So I say, go out and vote. We need more Republicans, and we will win everything. We're getting the wall. We've already started building it. We're getting everything, but we are winning on so many different fronts. But we do need more Republicans. So history says, and this is why you asked the question, that whoever's president always seems to lose the midterm. But nobody had an economy like we have. We have the greatest, nobody reports better than you on that. We have the greatest economy that we've ever had. And numbers just came out today about job openings and everything else. I mean, it's incredible, record numbers. So there's never been a president with us. Yes.
Because your critics on the left would say, oh, no, that's just a result of President Obama's policies finally taking effect. What do you say to that?
Years later. If the opposition got into office instead of me, they're going to put more rules and regulations in. They were going to do things with taxes that would have been a disaster, raise taxes. They were all going to raise taxes. We were going to do many other things. So we had 4.2 last month, last quarter. And everybody said that's impossible because the most it can go is 2 and, you know, very slowly, but it would never be up to that number. We had 4.2. Had the opposition gotten in, you would be at minus 4.2. You would be so low, you would have job numbers that would be so bad. You would have companies leaving this country, which they were flowing out of the country. Now they're flowing into the country. They're all wanting to be back in the United States, in America. And whenever I hear that, I say, isn't that sad that they can get away with it? You know, that's the opposition. And they say, well, he helped. He didn't even help. We had the slowest recovery in history, or I guess since the Depression, since the Great Depression. And we were heading down. Take a look at the early numbers, like the early numbers or the late numbers for him. We were heading down, 1% GDP. We were going down, and we were going down fast. So when I hear that, and when professionals hear that, they laugh, even professionals from the other side. We opened it up, and it's great.
Yeah. Well, that's, look, the economic accomplishments are significant. And a lot to be proud of, and I think people are feeling better about things. That said, there's a lot of division right now.
Yes.
And you now have people on the left almost calling for more of it. I mean, Hillary Clinton saying that we can't be civil. The left cannot be civil right now until we, you know, take back effectively the government. Now, fairly or unfairly, you as the President of the United States have a lot of responsibility in terms of trying to restore that civility.
It's true. That's true.
How do you do it?
Well, you know, it's got a big setback with Justice Kavanaugh. Number one at Yale Law School, you know, just like this person. And when you heard the horrible things said, you had to become somewhat aggressive, let's say. But Hillary's a very dishonest person. If you look at the things she says, I mean, they're so dishonest. And she was dishonest during the entire campaign, whether it was 33,000 emails that were deleted that so far nothing has happened with, which is very disappointing from the standpoint of this Justice Department. Very, very disappointing, I will tell you. But you look at all of the tremendous dishonesty. and it's got to be cleared up. We're going to get along. I think the economy is going to clear a lot of things up when people are really getting the jobs they want. But we have a tremendous, powerful base, the Republican Party. And they have to know that going out for the midterms is very important. It's almost like going out for the 2020 election that's coming up in the not too distant future. Isn't that incredible that we're already talking about that? But there's tremendous enthusiasm for that, tremendous. And I really think, again, there's tremendous enthusiasm for the midterms. We'll see. We'll see. If the enthusiasm's there, which it should be, it really should be, because they'll take away your tax cuts. They'll put rules, regulations. You'll start losing jobs. This would be a terrible thing for the country if that happened. But we'll see what happens. I think we're going to do very well.
And the economy could restore civility.
I really think the economy is going to bring people together because people are doing better now. African American unemployment, the best ever. Asian American, Hispanic American, women, everything, every category. I mean, whether you look at median income, whether you look at employment or unemployment, no matter what chart you're looking at, it's either ever or 50 or 60 years. The best numbers. It's probably the best economy we've ever had.
So you mentioned women. Let me ask you about that because women, you know, a lot of women are effectively the CFOs, right, of their family. They're paying the bills and they're keeping the trains running on time with the family. And they want financial prosperity. They want security.
Right.
Things that you're offering.
That's what I'm about.
If you look at the poll numbers, they're not liking you. So how do you overcome that right now?
Well, number one, I had worse poll numbers when I went into the last election, and you saw how well I did with women. I mean, if you looked at my poll numbers going into 2016, you would have said, there's not a woman in the country that's going to vote for me. And I did phenomenal with women. I did. In fact, that was one of the reasons, probably the reason I won in a true sense. Now, I also did better with Hispanics than they predicted. I did better with African Americans than they predicted. I guess I did better with the men stay with me. I don't know why. But with the women, they want security and they want financial security too. Look at 401ks. So let's say we have a really bad time in 3 weeks from now. Your 401ks are going to go down tremendously. People are going to lose wealth. If they don't go out and vote, then they have themselves to blame because they'll lose wealth, tremendous amount. I built up $11.7 trillion in wealth. You report on it. And if you look at China, by the way, they're down about $25 trillion in the last 5-6 months since I started going into what I have to do, which is straightening out the unfair balances.
What is the end game there with China?
To make a deal. Or
what would that deal be? I mean, what would that look like?
Look, right now, I've put tariffs on $250 billion worth of products, right? Nobody's feeling that. There's no inflation or anything in this country. Everyone will say, oh, there's good, but there's no, I mean, the inflation's very low.
Oh, Jay Powell might think there's a little
my biggest
inflation.
threat is the Fed, because the Fed is raising rates too fast, and it's independent, so I don't speak to him, but I'm not happy with what he's doing because it's going too fast, because you looked at the last inflation numbers, they're very low.
But you put him there. I mean, you think about Janet Yellen, and she was so dovish.
Can I be honest? Yeah. I'm not blaming anybody. I put him there. And maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but I put him there. What if he gets it wrong? I put a couple of other people there that I'm not so happy with, too. But for the most part, I'm very happy with people. Excuse me?
Well, if he gets it wrong and he misses...
Look, he's being extremely conservative. Let me use a nice term. He's being extremely conservative. The problem is we are just having record numbers. You know, when they try and compare what I'm doing with Obama, Obama was working off 0 interest rates. I'm working off real interest rates, almost normalized interest rates. That's a big difference, and my numbers are much better. But you take a look. You can't compare zero. Give me 0 interest rates right now, and you take a look at our numbers. It'd be the greatest economy in the history of the world. Nobody would be able to compete with it. We're paying a lot of interest. And I think we're paying too much, to be honest with you, but it was so strong. And he's doing it because the economy is so good, because the economy is so strong. So we'll see how that all works out. I'm not happy with it.
If he gets it wrong, would he be out of a job? I mean, if he starts hiking rates at a time when we really don't have that much inflation.
For another 4 years, 5 years. So, look, I am not happy with what he's doing. I will tell you that. Because inflation And I fully get the whole thing, the Federal Reserve. I get it as well as any president who's ever been here. I get it really well. But right now, that inflation's not here. If we start to see it, then you start to go and you do what he's doing. But in the meantime, I'd like to pay off debt. I'd like to do other things and pay interest. Well,
We got a lot of it.
We do, and we're going to start reducing costs now that we took care of our military. We had to take care of our military, but we're going to start, you'll see that very soon, we're going to start reducing costs. We have such fat in the government. But I wanted to take care of our military. You have to understand that Democrats have programs that are a total waste of money. But in order to get the military, $700 billion and $716 billion, I had to do it because President Obama starved the military. He didn't give them raises. He didn't give them anything. I gave them a 10% pay increase. They haven't had it in a decade. We gave them an increase. That's a big thing. I had to do it, not that anybody's wanting to, although I did because I love the military, law enforcement, the military. I gave them a raise. But I'm also building brand new planes, all made in America. I'm building brand new ships. We're building missiles and rockets, and we're fixing our nuclear, and we're going to be in tip-top shape. In order to get $700 billion and $716 billion 2 years, I had to give the Democrats some stuff that I would never give to anybody. So they're very negative on the military, and they're very negative on law enforcement and the border, and I don't see how they win elections that way.
Breaking tonight, President Trump speaking with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who denies all knowledge of how or why Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi was killed. This phone call happening after my sit-down with the president. Now, earlier today, I had asked the president what he plans to do about this atrocity. So now, part 2 of my exclusive sit-down with the President of the United States. Watch.
Turkey and Saudi Arabia are looking at it very strongly, and it depends whether or not the king or the crown prince knew about it, in my opinion. Number one, what happened, but whether or not they knew about it. If they knew about it, that would be bad. If they didn't know about it, bad things can happen. You look at what they're doing in Iran. Don't forget, Saudi Arabia is our partner. They're our ally against Iran and against missiles and against what they're doing, trying to take over the Middle East. And by the way, since I'm here, not succeeding. They're heading down the tubes if you look at what's going on. So Saudi Arabia, and they have, I can only say, I've been here for almost 2 years, they've been a great ally to me. To me. They're investing tremendous amounts of money. They're fighting terror. Now, with all of that being said, you can't do what we've been reading about. But we're going to learn a lot about it. Now, one thing I have to say, because you cover business so well, they made the largest order in the history of our country for outside of our country, for weapons, for any kinds of military weapons, missile systems, ships. They're buying
from us.
From us, $110 billion they're purchasing. It's 500,000 jobs, American jobs. Everything's made here. Okay, so now people say, well, we want to have you end that order. Well, aren't we just hurting our own country? Because here's what's going to happen. They're going to say, hey, America won't sell us the missiles. We'll buy them from China or we'll buy them from Russia. Ours are better, much better. They'll say America won't sell us the ships. America won't sell us the arms that we need. What we'll do is we'll buy them from Russia, China, and there are some others, France. You know, there are.
And so they benefit financially, and they might then have a more strategic relationship too with those countries.
You have senators and congressmen say, "Oh, if they did that, we should punish them by not selling them equipment." Well, if we don't sell them the equipment, they'll buy lesser quality equipment because we make it's so much better than anybody else. But they'll buy it from Russia. They'll buy it from China. So we're not really hurting them. We're hurting ourselves. So we want to be smart. I don't want to give up a $110 billion order or whatever it is. It's the largest order ever given by an outside country, okay? And I don't want to give that up. You're talking about jobs. What I'm doing, we've created an incredible economy. I want Boeing and I want Lockheed and I want Raytheon to take those orders and to hire lots of people to make that incredible equipment.
Well,
you understand?
Yeah, no, I get it, but it's complicated stuff, and you're looking at jobs here at home and a lot of money for American companies versus what certainly seems as pretty atrocious. Now we don't know everything, but
we don't know.
I mean these are the decisions that you face as president.
Let's hope we hear the proper answers.
You mentioned Jeff Sessions earlier.
Yeah.
We haven't heard a tremendous amount about the Mueller investigation recently. I imagine we're going to hear more after midterms.
Well, let me just tell you. First of all, there was no collusion. There was no Russia. Do you think I'd call Russia? I need help in Idaho. I need help in Iowa. Oh, let's call Russia. It's a con job, just like so many other con jobs that you've been seeing. It's a total con job. It's a disgrace that they were allowed to do it. This was the Democrats losing the Electoral College, which they should have won easily. I had to run the whole East Coast. They lost, and they come up with this excuse. We lost because of, let's see, Russia. Yeah, Russia. I didn't make one call to Russia. The whole thing is so disgraceful. So it continues. It's a witch hunt. It's nothing more than a witch hunt. And most people get it, including Democrats. They wink at me. They look at me, they wink at me. The Democrats get it too. But we'll see what happens. It just continues onward. And Jeff Sessions should have never let it happen. He should have never recused himself. I mean, here's a man recused himself. Why wouldn't he say, I'm going to recuse myself? I wouldn't have put him in that position.
But he's in the position now. Is he going to stay in the position?
I'm not going to tell you that. We'll see what happens. But I think it was a disgrace. And by the way, my enemies, people that are on the other side, say for him to have taken the job and for him to immediately have recused himself is a disgrace. They say Trump is right about that.
Yeah. Do you think that in some ways Vladimir Putin is kind of getting what he may have wanted? And I say this because it almost didn't matter to the Russians who won, but it certainly mattered in that they wanted to create this this division, because it's harder as a country,
is
right?
Yes, because our Justice Department and FBI played right into their hands with this stupid investigation, or whatever you call it. People say I'm not under investigation. You know, I'm not a target of this investigation, which nobody ever likes to say. But it played right into their hands. Because if they want to sow, they use the word sow chaos. Sow chaos. They got it for nothing. They didn't do it. They got it for nothing. We did it to ourselves. The chaos, the stupid chaos. Now, it hasn't been talked about for a long time because people don't believe it. Who's going to believe that I call Russia to give me help? And everyone does say, Richard Burr the other day, they asked him, he's the head of the Senate Intelligence, and they asked him, did you see collusion? No, I see no collusion. He just said that. They haven't issued their final report, but he said there was no collusion. As you know, the House, Devin Nunes, and they came out with a ruling there was no collusion. But Richard Burr, they asked him the other day during actually the floods in North Carolina, South Carolina, they said, what about this committee? He said, we have found no collusion. You know why? Because there is no collusion.
So collusion aside, I mean, the concern is that Putin and his folks over there in Russia, and maybe the Chinese are trying to do the same thing, are trying to tweak us, right? And they kind of like this division.
They're laughing. Because these people, not me, these people have played right into their hands. Assuming, I keep hearing they like to sow chaos. Sow, a word from Old English. They sow chaos.
Oh, we got some of that right now.
We put it. I mean, it's ridiculous. I believe that they laugh at it. Yeah, it played right into their hands.
So let me ask you
this. With that being said, nobody's been tougher on Russia. No president, at least certainly in the semi-modern era, has been tougher than I have. I gave weapons to Ukraine. Obama gave them pillows. Gave them pillows. That's what he actually gave them, pillows. He wouldn't give them any weapons. I'm the one that brought up the scam of the pipeline, where Germany is paying them billions and billions of dollars for natural gas. I brought it up. Nobody even knew about it. I mean, they knew about it, but nobody talked about it. I made it a big issue.
So your policy's been tough.
Well, look at my policies on energy. Yes. She wanted to put windmills all over the place, which don't work. I'm opening up our country to natural gas and to oil and to the kind of things.
So I gotta ask you.
And that's competition for Russia.
Helsinki, you've got a lot of criticisms, including from me, full disclosure. I wondered why you weren't tougher on Putin, but you've said you had a great meeting, you met with him one-on-one.
Trish,
what happened?
If I was tough, it's easy for me. It's easier for me to be tough. We had a great meeting with him before that. We had a 2-hour meeting, and then we had another meeting, I guess, with a lot of people, and They were great meetings. And it was very tough, but they were
Well,
great
why were
meetings.
they great?
Let me explain. Then we had a press conference. So when I was very tough with North Korea, with Kim Jong-un, everyone said, oh, he's going to cause nuclear war. Well, we're doing great with North Korea, okay, as you understand. We're doing great. No missiles fired. We got back our hostages, everything. We're doing great. Everybody said, he's too tough on North Korea. He's too tough. He's going to cause nuclear warfare. Okay? Look how it turned out. With Putin, they want me to go up and have a boxing match with him on stage. I was nice to him. I was nice to him. But what happened is when I walked off the stage, everyone said, oh, that was great. We're on the plane. All of a sudden, the fake news starts saying, oh, Trump wasn't tough enough. And let me tell you, if I was too tough, they'd say Trump was too tough. I could have a very good relationship with Russia. Having a good relationship with Russia would be a good thing, not a bad thing.
Did you tell him in that
this
meeting?
This stupid investigation hurts us from having a good relationship. Don't forget, we're a great nuclear power, but so are they.
Okay.
And having a good relationship is not a bad thing.
Did you tell him in the meeting he's got to knock it off?
I told him, well, let me just tell you what I told him. We talked about Israel. We talked about meddling. I said, no more meddling. If you did meddle, I said, no more meddling. To which he says, I didn't meddle, I didn't meddle. I said, no more meddling. You know, Obama said, knock it off. And yet Obama's talking to his second in charge. And he's saying, tell Vladimir I'll talk to him after the election. I mean, look, in terms of meddling, Obama was told in September, just prior to the election, that Russia was trying to meddle in the election.
Right.
He didn't do anything about it. He didn't even say anything about it. He only brings it up after the election. That should be your investigation. Why didn't he do something about it? Here's the good news. It didn't affect one vote. But Obama was told, and everybody agrees to that, but Obama was told before the election in September by the FBI about Russia and possible Russian meddling. You know what he did? Nothing. You know why? Because he thought Hillary Clinton was going to win, and he didn't want to do anything to upset that. And just to finish, the last thing that Putin wants now, I can tell you, is Trump. He'd much rather have Clinton, although I hope
China doesn't want you either, right?
Excuse me?
China doesn't want you either?
Oh, I don't think China's too happy with me, because we are winning with China. For the first time, a man named Pillsbury, an expert.
I know him, Michael Pillsbury.
I saw him, I think, on your show, actually. He said that China, for the first time, he's never seen anything like it. We're doing so well. And he said much more than that, but if I say it, you'll say I'm bragging. I don't want to do that. But we're doing great against China. We're doing great against Russia.
We're going to make sure that none of them interfere, right? That they're not interfering in midterms and they're not interfering in 2020.
Excuse me. I've done more having to do with the new election, the election coming up, than Obama ever did on 2016. Ever.
That's good.
I don't think he did anything. But ask Obama, why didn't he do something when the FBI told him about it? Because he thought Hillary Clinton was going to win.
Hey, quick question. 2020.
Right.
You're running?
Yes, 100%.
Michael Bloomberg might be running?
That's good.
Yeah?
Yeah, sure. I think it'd be easy. I think it'd be so easy.
How do you think
he'll get through. Well, I don't think he'll get through the Democrats.
In other words, he wouldn't be able to do anything in the primaries because of where the party's going?
I think the Democrats will eat them up. You know, you have a lot of people running. I'm hearing names that are shockingly bad, but they're nasty.
Avenatti?
I think that, I don't think he's a serious person. He's not. I don't think Avenatti, the lawyer, I don't think he's. I just beat him in a big case.
You did? By the way, you're going to have her pay the legal fees?
In fact, he has to pay me legal fees.
He does?
I don't think he has any money, but he and she have to pay me a lot of legal fees, and it's based
You're going to hold them accountable for that?
Based on Texas law. I love Texas. Based on Texas law, where the legal fees are nice and plentiful.
And you'll hold them to that?
Are you serious? Of course.
I'm just asking.
Wouldn't you be disappointed if I said no? They'll pay a lot. But no, he's not a serious person. The Bloomberg is, but I don't think he'll do well. He may do it or he may not. But I don't think he'll do well. I think that I would know who. I have a pretty good idea who it is. I'm not going to tell you, but I have a pretty good idea who I think will emerge as a group.
Well, that's a tease.
Yeah, a little bit.
Come on.
Well, we'll have to
give me a hint.
We'll have other conversations.
So we're going now to the southern White House. We have a lot of work we're going to be doing in Florida. We had some really great election results, as you know. Georgia just came in, and that was a big success. Florida was a tremendous success with both the governor, Ron DeSantis. He'll be a great governor, and the Senator, Rick Scott. And as you know, Ohio was a great victory. We had a lot of great victories, so we're very happy about that. We put out a statement on Saudi Arabia, which I guess most of you have seen, and we'll see how that all works out. It's a very complex situation. It's a shame, but it is what it is. Because it's America first for me. It's all about America first. We're not going to give up hundreds of billions of dollars in orders and let Russia, China, and everybody else have them. It's all about, for me, very simple. It's America first. Saudi Arabia, if we broke with them, I think your oil prices would go through the roof. I've kept them down. They've helped me keep them down. Right now we have low oil prices, or relatively. I'd like to see it go down even lower. But I think that it's a very simple equation for me. I'm about make America great again, and I'm about America first.
Mr. President, are you basically telling us, Mr. President, that human rights are too expensive?
That what?
That human rights are too expensive?
No, I'm not saying that at all. If you look at Iran, just take a look at Iran, and you look at what they're doing. They are a terrorist nation right now. Although I must tell you, they're a lot better right now than they were when I took office. When I took office, they were heading in a very, very bad direction. And at some point, things very positive, frankly, could happen with Iran, but we also need a counterbalance. And Israel needs help also. If we abandon Saudi Arabia, it would be a terrible mistake. I really can't understand what you're saying. Sorry.
Mr. President, the Washington Post, in a statement, put out a statement. They said that you're putting your personal interests, your commercial interests.
Well, I have nothing to do with Saudi. Just so you understand, I don't make deals with Saudi Arabia. I don't have money from Saudi Arabia. I have nothing to do with Saudi Arabia. I couldn't care less. And I will tell you, and as most of you know, being president has cost me a fortune, and that's okay with me. I knew that a long time ago. But being president has cost me a fortune, a tremendous fortune like you've never seen before. But someday I'll tell you what that is. And I knew that a long time ago because I don't do deals. All I do is focus on this country and making great deals for this country. I don't focus on making great deals for myself because I don't care anymore. So Saudi Arabia has nothing to do with me. What does have to do with me is putting America first. Wait. They're buying hundreds of billions of dollars worth of things from this country. If I say we don't want to take your business, if I say we're going to cut it off, they will get the equipment, military equipment and other things from Russia and China. Russia and China would be very, very happy because right now we're doing very well against China. We're doing very well against everybody, including Russia, and I'm going to keep it that way. And I'm not going to tell a country that's spending hundreds of billions of dollars and has helped me do one thing very importantly, keep oil prices down so that they're not going to $100 and $150 a barrel. Right now, we have oil prices in great shape. I'm not going to destroy the world economy, and I'm not going to destroy the economy for our country by being foolish with Saudi Arabia. So I think the statement, wait a minute, I think the statement was pretty obvious what I said. It's about America first. Yeah.
Are you concerned about Saudis? Are you
Say it again.
On Ivanka's emails, why was it appropriate for your daughter to use personal email for
Just so you understand, early on, and for a little period of time, Ivanka did some emails. They weren't classified like Hillary Clinton. They weren't deleted like Hillary Clinton, who deleted 33. She wasn't doing anything to hide her emails. I looked at it just very briefly today, and the presidential records, they're all in presidential records. There was no hiding. There was no deleting like Hillary Clinton did. There was no servers in the basement like Hillary Clinton had. You're talking about a whole different, you're talking about all fake news. So what Ivanka did, it's all in the presidential records. Everything is there. There was no deletion. There was no nothing. What it is a false story. Hillary Clinton deleted 33,000 emails. She had a server in the basement. That's the real story.
The fact that your asylum policy has been put on hold.
The which policy?
Your asylum policy has been put on hold.
Well, you go to the Ninth Circuit, and it's a disgrace, and I'm going to put in a major complaint because you cannot win, if you're us, a case in the Ninth Circuit. And I think it's a disgrace when people file, every case gets filed in the Ninth Circuit because they know that's not law. That's not what this country stands for. Every case that gets filed in the Ninth Circuit, we get beaten, and then we end up having to go to the Supreme Court, like the travel ban, and we won. The Ninth Circuit, we're going to have to look at that because every case, no matter where it is, they file it practically. I mean practically, for all intents and purposes. They file it in what's called the Ninth Circuit. This was an Obama judge. And I'll tell you what, it's not going to happen like this anymore. Everybody that wants to sue the United States, they file their case in they file their case in the Ninth Circuit. And it means an automatic loss. No matter what you do, no matter how good your case is, and the Ninth Circuit is really something we have to take a look at because it's not fair. People should not be allowed to immediately run to this very friendly circuit and file their case. And you people know better than anybody what's happening. It's a disgrace. In my opinion, it's a disgrace what happens with the Ninth Circuit. We will win that case in the Supreme Court of the United States. Go ahead. What do you have?
Will you answer
I can't hear your question. I can't hear you. Your voice is not. I don't know Admiral. I don't know Admiral McRae. What? No, they're all finished. The written answers are finished. I don't know. If the lawyers have them, I don't know. They will. They will. The written answers to the witch hunt that's been going on forever. No collusion, no nothing. They've been finished. Finished them yesterday. The lawyers have them. I assume they'll turn them in today or soon. No, I'm going to a war zone. Yeah.
Are you happy with the sanctions on Iran?
What?
Are you happy with the sanctions on Iran?
Yeah, the sanctions on Iran are very strong, very powerful. They're sanctions, I think, that have had a tremendous impact. More sanctions are going on. We have a lot of tremendous support, and Iran is not the same country it was when I became president. It's a much different country, and hopefully at some point we'll be able to make a fair deal and help Iran and help the people of Iran.
Should Julian Assange be able to go free?
Well, I know that Schumer's daughter works for Facebook, which I just found out today. And if you look at what Facebook's been doing, you know, they have some real explaining to do, how they're so Democrat-oriented, all of them. But I hear Schumer's daughter works for Facebook. And I was very surprised and disappointed to learn that, because nobody knew that until now. Yeah, go ahead.
Should Julian Assange go free?
I don't know anything about him, really. I don't know much about him. I really don't. Go ahead.
What do you want Pakistan to do?
Say it.
What do you want Pakistan to do in the fight against terrorism?
I want Pakistan to help us. We're no longer paying $1.3 billion to Pakistan. We're paying them nothing, because that's what they've done to help us, nothing. And I cut those payments off a long time ago. We're not paying Pakistan any money because they're not helping us at all. And we'll see where it all goes. I hope to have a good relationship with Pakistan, but right now we're paying Pakistan nothing. I cut them off. They were getting $1.3 billion a year. They're not getting anything now. Oh, you don't worry about the Thanksgiving. These are tough people. They know what they're doing, and they're great, and they've done a great job. You're so worried about the Thanksgiving holiday for them. They are so proud to be representing our country on the border, where if you look at what's happening, Mexico, the people from Tijuana are saying, wow, these are tough people. They're fighting us. They're in fistfights all over the place. These are tough people that are coming in. Now I understand they have 500 people that have been designated as, let's put it in a nice word, criminals. And these are the people that are coming in. No, you don't have people coming in. The order today is not, we can get around that very easily. What I do say, Ninth Circuit is, it's very unfair when everybody files their case in the Ninth Circuit. They file it for a reason. As far as the troops, they are proud to be on the border. They are proud to be defending our nation. And we're not letting people in. It's called catch and detain. It's not called catch and release like it has been for many years. For many years, they called it catch and release. They don't call it that anymore. And our soldiers are doing an incredible job. And if you look at the walls that they're building, and if you look at all the barricades that they're putting up, they've done a great job.
Do you have any reaction to Michael Avenatti being arrested for domestic violence?
No, I wish him the best of luck. I wish him the best of luck.
What about the markets? Do you agree with Larry Kudlow that we're not headed to a recession?
No, I think we're doing great. I mean, as a country, we're doing great. Our unemployment is at a record low. You look at all of the different statistics. I think your tech stocks have some problems, but that'll come back. But no, I think we're going to do very well. I'd like to see the Fed with a lower interest rate. I think the rate's too high. I think we have much more of a Fed problem than we have a problem with anyone else. We're doing very well with China. China wants to make a deal very badly. They might not say that to you, but they want to make it very badly. I have another $250 billion worth of tariffs to put on if we don't make a deal. And believe me, I'll be putting them on because China's been ripping off our country for many, many years. And they don't rip us off with me. We made a great deal with Canada. We made a great deal with Mexico. I appreciate the help that Mexico's giving us at the border. You see that people are not coming through. All of the fistfights and the fighting that you see are done on the Mexico side. They're not coming in here, but I appreciate what Mexico's doing. They can do more, but I appreciate what they're doing.
How can you say for sure that all of these 100 emails were preserved, which is a private server?
Well, they were preserved. The lawyer told me they're all preserved. Historically, they're preserved. They didn't make a determination. And it's just like I said, I think it was maybe he did, maybe he didn't. They did not make that assessment. The CIA has looked at it. They've studied it a lot. They have nothing definitive. And the fact is, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. If you look at Iran, what they've done, they've been a bad actor. You look at what's happening in Syria with Assad, with hundreds of thousands of people killed. We are with Saudi Arabia. We're staying with Saudi Arabia. And by the way, just so everybody, I have no business whatsoever with Saudi Arabia. Couldn't care less. No. This is about America first. They're paying us $400 billion plus to purchase and invest in our country. That's probably the biggest amount ever paid to the United States. This is over a long period of time. It means hundreds of thousands of jobs, billions of dollars of investment and product. And if you think I'm going to let Russia have that money or those things, if you think I'm going to let China make the military equipment, hey, China and Russia would love to make $100 billion worth of military equipment from Saudi Arabia. We have the contracts. They wanted those contracts. That would be a big, fat, beautiful gift to Russia and to China. They're not going to get that gift. Just so you understand, it's about Make America Great Again. It's about America first. We're going to stay with Saudi Arabia. The other thing, Saudi Arabia is probably the second biggest oil producer. They've worked with us very well. We've kept oil prices down. If you want to see oil prices go to $150 a barrel, like, by the way, Russia would love to see that, all you have to do is break up our relationship with Saudi Arabia. What? I don't know that he's going to be there, but if he is, I would. Yeah. So Cindy Hyde-Smith is a spectacular woman. She's a great senator. She came in. She's done a fantastic job in a short period of time. She made a statement, which I know that she feels very badly about it, and it was just sort of said in jest, as she said, and she's a tremendous woman. And it's a shame that she has to go through this. I think she's going to do very well. I really believe she's going to do very well. I've gotten to know her well. She's a person that loves the people of Mississippi. She loves the people of this country. She's going to be a great senator. I'm going to do 2 events in Mississippi on Monday. I'm doing one near, let's see, I'm doing one near Jackson. I'm doing one in the Gulf Coast. And we're going to do one in Tupelo. So we might even do 3, but we're going to do 2. I think Tupelo probably is definite, and I think Gulfport is definite. Cindy Hyde-Smith is a tremendous woman who truly loves the people of Mississippi and our country. And I think she's going to win. Very big.
Why did you ever let Ivanka be interviewed with Democrats about a week ago?
Oh, Ivanka can handle herself. Ivanka can handle herself. These are all in the historical records. There was no deletion whatsoever, unlike Hillary Clinton, who deleted 33,000 emails. Unlike Hillary Clinton, who had a server in the basement, Ivanka didn't. This was just early on when she came in. These calls were not classified, unlike Hillary Clinton's calls, which were classified. And it's all fake news.
So when holiday pardons? Any holiday?
I love the pardons for the turkey.
Are you going to pardon any people?
I haven't thought of it, but it's not a bad thing.
You still empower Assad. Why are you still supporting his position?
No, I think what Assad has done is horrible. I mean, really horrible.
So why are you still empower the president?
Question about the recently released Time Magazine online poll. Who do you feel, obviously, I can assume who you think deserves to be first place, who do you think deserves to be second place in Time's Person of the Year?
It's called Person of the Year, right? It's no longer Man of the Year, right? Okay. I don't know. That's up to Time Magazine. I've been there before. I can't imagine anybody else other than Trump. Can you imagine anybody other than Trump? Huh? Have a good time, everybody. Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you for having us.
Thank you, Joe.
We're sitting in a pretty storied place. It's really something to be right outside the Oval Office. Last time we met was in Davos.
Yes, that's right.
We talked about a lot of different things. One of the things that I asked you towards the end of the interview was, as a businessman and a problem solver, someone known for that, what are we going to do about education? I don't know if you remember that, because we talked about a lot of other things, the economy, and you sort of gave me a foreshadowing of what I think you're talking about today. It was vocational schools, but I think it's been honed now, and it's much more. The details are ready to come out now on what we're calling, or you're calling, is the pledge to America's workers, right? And reskilling workers.
That's right, which we have to do.
Spearheaded by your daughter, Ivanka.
Ivanka is very much involved, and she's been involved. We have tremendous numbers of people who really are phenomenal in every way, but they're not trained and they're not qualified to take some of the jobs. You report on it all the time, all of the companies that are pouring back into our country. So we have Chrysler, we have so many companies, and we have companies expanding. Look at what's happening with Apple, where they're going to be spending $350 billion. And I can go on. And we need people with skill. We need people who are trained. It's much different than it was 30 years ago and 40 years ago. We need people that can go out there and do it. And that's exactly what we're doing. And in front of you is a list that's going to create almost 4 million jobs. These are a list of companies. They'll be creating a tremendous number of jobs, and they're going to be skilled jobs, and these are people that will be trained, really trained and trained well.
The co-chairman, co-chairwoman, along with Wilbur Ross for the initiative, as we mentioned, was Ivanka. And when I spoke to her, she mentioned that the pledge, or that the goal, was for 500,000, and she said it was much greater than that, but she didn't tell me.
Right.
3.7 million.
This is, yeah, it's going to be close. That's exactly
That's individuals that will benefit
from
skills, training.
And if you look at the companies, those are the great companies.
This is all private sector funded too, so this is an example of public-private partnership.
Walmart, so many great companies. They're going to be here at 3 o'clock today. We're going to be having a big conference. Everybody's here, and we're talking about almost 4 million jobs.
Currently, the economy is pretty hot, running pretty hot. Hopefully not too hot.
No, but I think it's maybe as good as it's ever been, ever. I mean, companies, what I really am happy about is A lot of cash is coming back in through the billions and trillions of dollars, as you know, that was overseas where companies were locked and they couldn't get it back. Now it's coming back hundreds of millions of dollars at a clip. And also companies are coming back to our country. We have record numbers of companies coming back in. They're coming back, they're pouring back in. And they're going to Michigan and they're going to Ohio and Pennsylvania and so many different states. And people can't believe what's happening. We're really doing well.
Do you worry that, is it time for the Fed to be doing what it's doing? Do you think, just to get a policy question in, should they be raising rates on the trajectory that is indicated right now in your view?
I put a very good man in the Fed. I don't necessarily agree with it because he's raising interest rates. I'm not saying that I agree with it, and I don't necessarily agree with it. I must tell you, I don't. I'm not thrilled because, you know, we go up, and every time you go up, they want to raise rates again, and I don't really, I am not happy about it. But at the same time, I'm letting them do what they feel is best. But I don't like all of this work that goes into doing what we're doing. You look at the euro, you look at what's going on with the EU, and they're not doing what we're doing, and we already have somewhat of a disadvantage, although I'm turning that into an advantage. You know, last year and for years, we've been losing $150 billion with the EU nations, with the European Union. And they're making money easy, and their currency is falling. And China, their currency is dropping like a rock, and our currency is going up. And I have to tell you, it puts us at a disadvantage. Now, I'm just saying the same thing that I would have said as a private citizen. So somebody would say, oh, maybe you shouldn't say that as a president. I couldn't care less what they say, because my views haven't changed. I don't like all of this work that we're putting into the economy, and then I see rates going up. I see China where I mean, look at what's happening with their currency. It's dropping like a rock. And the
partly
EU,
because of some of the trade.
Well, it's also like I think I'm helping. Okay, you want to know the truth because I'm doing something. We're going to, you know, level out the playing field.
Can we talk about that in
Sure.
the context of the stock market after the election? Well documented, was up at 1.40% or so. It's consolidated those gains and held on to the lion's share of those gains. Does that go into your thinking in terms of if we're ever going to address some of these?
This is the time.
This is the time.
This is the time.
Is there a time when
you know the expression? We're playing with the bank's money, right?
Is
We're up almost 40%.
Is there a time when you say, God, things are going so great with the economy? I'm worried about the headwind of trade, given that we have a tailwind with tax reform and deregulation and all these great things happening. Do you look at it as, well, we've got all these tailwinds, we might as well have one headwind, or does there come a time where you say, look, I need to pull back a little and get what I can, but maybe not everything I want?
So, Joe, I could have a much easier life if I wanted to do it incorrectly. It would be much easier for me. Sitting here, I could just let all of these countries continue onward with these massive deficits. I mean, honestly, I don't want to use the word because it's a highly respected show, but they are taking advantage of us, okay? I'll use a different set of words. They are taking advantage
it's cable,
of us.
though, if you really want.
I know, but it's not as good as the other word. You know what the other word is.
You can get away with it on
We
cable.
are being taken advantage of.
Okay.
And I don't like it. And I haven't liked it for many years. China, $507 billion a year in deficits. With the EU, $151 billion. With Mexico, $120 billion. Mexico, who would think Mexico? Mexico's making a fortune. Plus, they have a tax. We don't have a tax. They have a tax on top of that, and the tax is almost 17%, a VAT tax. And you look, I could go through every country. I could talk about Japan. I could talk about, they're very good allies, but no wonder they're good. I mean, the deficits, the money they're making off the United States. Now, I would have a higher stock market right now. It's already up almost 40%, as you know, since the election. It could be 80% if I didn't want to do this. But ultimately, what I'm doing is making it so it's right. And we'll also start cutting expenses.
Are you seeing some sign, some glimmers of success, of hope from some of these trading partners that they're starting to?
Hope.
I mean, but are they starting to? What you think is come
100%.
around? Let me mention just one thing. Yesterday we had our Delivering Alpha conference, CNBC. Steve Bannon spoke, and he was talking about China. Said some very positive things, by the way, about your presidency. But
he should.
Said for the first time in decades, we're winning against China. They're so scared they don't know what to do. And Kudlow at this point was on as well, who said the guy that may be holding things up is President Xi at this point.
I don't want them to be scared. I want them to do well. I really like President Xi a lot, but it was very unfair. So I raised 50. We're down 500. Now, some people would say 375 billion. I'm not talking about million. I'm not talking about pennies. I'm talking about we're down 375 billion, but other estimates could say 507. It doesn't matter. So it's in between there or it's there. We're down a tremendous amount. I raised 50. And they matched us. I said, you don't match us. You can't match us because otherwise we're always going to be behind the eight ball.
Would you ever get to 500 though?
I'm ready to go to 500.
We've got with the midterms on the horizon. What if the stock market were to go down?
Well, I actually think that's, well, if it does, it does. Look, I'm not doing this for
20%?
politics. I'm doing this to do the right thing for our country. We have been ripped off by China for a long time. And I told that to President Xi. I said, how did this ever happen? And you know what their answer is? Because I deal with the highest echelons of China. One of the great people of China said, there was never anybody to talk to in the United States. We would put on a trade barrier where you couldn't sell cars or you couldn't sell beef or you couldn't sell your farm products. We would put on, nobody would talk to us in the United States. So we said, hey, that's great. Then we'd put on another one. We'd put on a tariff on cars, 25%, and you charge us virtually nothing, 2.5%, but they don't pay it. So we would do this and nobody would talk. We'd start off at a lower number, we'd raise it, nobody would ever complain until you came along, me. And they said, now you're doing more than complaining. We don't like what you're doing. You know, they think I'm doing maybe too much, but of course they're going to think that. But for many years, and I'm not just saying Obama, I'm saying Bush, and I'm saying long before, they had nobody. And it's very interesting because I actually asked them the question. So we're down 507 recently. We're down $507 billion in trade deficits. How did it happen? And they told me nobody ever complained. Nobody ever talked to us.
This morning you tweeted. Interesting tweet. Second meeting, potentially, with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
Is that in the works? Is it planned? Has it been talked
about?
Yeah,
I would say it's in the works. Look, we had a tremendous discussion on many things. Terrorism, Syria, the Middle East overall, Iran. We talked about, as an example, nuclear proliferation. There's nothing, to me, there's nothing more important than that. We had a tremendous meeting. I think it was a very good press conference. I mean, except for the fake news, I really think I did very well at the press conference.
But a second meeting you've broached the subject
We got along very well. Look, the fact is we got along very well. I think could do great things for his country, but for our country. I'm interested in our country. I'm also interested in the world. I'd like to see peace. And I think we can do great things for the world. I think we can do, now, that includes China, that includes others. I'm doing very well getting along with countries. Getting along is a good thing, not a bad thing. But I think I'd have a good relationship with Putin.
You have a personal relationship with people that I've seen for many, many years. All right, and I understand how that works. Looking at what you're
even you, which is almost impossible. Right?
And as far as thank you, as far as the end game with Russia, there are lots of things that you think we can do in terms of making the world safer with Russia. Yeah. So the personal relationship.
By the way, that's good for everybody.
But the relationship you had with Putin, the tone, which was relatively conciliatory for what some people say is an enemy or an adversary, can that tone totally be explained by you wanting to do the best things for the country, or is there is there something underlying that?
I have nothing to do with Russia. I never did. That
so
other
it's
deal
totally
is a big hoax. It's a hoax. In your view, it's called the Democrat hoax. It's a big fat hoax. I have nothing to do with Russia, and I think you know that. You would know. You've known me for a long time.
I know how you are with people, and I could see that.
You think I'm dealing in Russia?
Knowing what that you want to accomplish in foreign policy and domestically, I could see that tone not necessarily having anything to do with other than wanting the best things for the
country. So I had a meeting that lasted for more than 2 hours. It wasn't always conciliatory in that meeting.
That hasn't come out.
No, but we discussed many of the points I just said. I mean, basically, that's what we discussed. We discussed lots of good things for both countries, frankly. But there are things that we can do for both countries that are very good. Now, we then go to a news conference. I mean, I had some of these fools from the media saying, why didn't you stand there, look him in the face, walk over to him, and start shouting at him? I said, is these people crazy? I want to make a deal. I want to make a deal. You can't do that. And we've been having a bad relationship with Russia for many years. And, you know, that may be wrong. It may be that you can't do anything. That's very possible. but I'm different than other presidents. I'm a deal maker. I've made deals all my life. I do really well. I make great deals. You know it because you've covered them for a long time, Joe. And I think if we can get along with Russia and other countries.
Does it help with China to have Russia as almost as a, to set them?
It doesn't hurt, okay? It doesn't hurt.
And that was in your mind as well?
Maybe in the computer. I mean, maybe. It probably doesn't hurt, you know, but I'm not even looking at it that way. I'm just saying if we could do certain things on terrorism. As an example, we found out that in St. Petersburg, a little more than a year ago, there was going to be a very major terrorist attack. St. Petersburg, Russia.
Right.
We called them and let them know. They were able to nab this very vicious gang of terrorists. They got them.
No.
I assume they're someplace right now that maybe you don't even want to know about. I don't know what they did with them, okay?
Look, I
and
know,
I don't care. But wait a minute.
Yeah.
They thanked us profusely. This was going to be a major attack. We found out about it, and we gave them that information. That's a good thing. And Putin called me up, President Putin called me up, and he said, I want to thank you very much. That would have been a major attack in St. Petersburg. We informed them. I don't think anybody even knows about that. These are good things. They inform us. They can inform us. Getting along is a good thing, not a bad thing. The fake news, they want to make it like where there's a big confrontation. I don't want to play that game. I don't want to go into that game.
Any timeline on the next meeting, Mr. President?
Let me just say
Okay,
this. With that being said, I have been far tougher on Russia than any president in many, many years, maybe ever. Even the big fight I have with Germany over the fact that they're taking natural gas, they're taking energy from Russia, paying them billions of dollars. I said, wait a minute, we're supposed to be protecting you from Russia, and you're paying them billions of dollars. What's that all about? Now, do you think that's a positive for Russia? I'm talking them out of things that where they're giving billions of dollars. It's ridiculous, by the way, that that's happening. And then on top of that, Germany pays a fraction of what they should be paying for defense. We're supposed to defend them. So they're paying Russia, and we're supposed to defend them from Russia. So you just look at that point. But look at the sanctions I've put on. Look at the diplomats I threw out. Look at all of the things that I've done. Nobody else did what I've done. Obama didn't do it. Obama was a patsy for Russia. He was a total patsy. Look at the statement he made where he thought the mics were turned off, okay? The stupid statement he made. Nobody does a big deal about that. Getting along with President Putin, getting along with Russia is a positive, not a negative.
Right.
Now, with that being said, if that doesn't work out, I'll be the worst enemy he's ever had. The worst he's ever had.
I don't want to end it on that note,
No,
but
I think he knows that.
Yeah.
But I think he knows that. I'll be his worst nightmare. But I don't think it'll be that way. I actually think we'll have a good relationship.
Well, I think it'd be, it's obviously in the two last nuclear superpowers, or at least the two largest.
90%.
Yeah.
90%, think of it, the two countries.
All right, Mr. President.
Thank you
again,
very much.
Thank
Joe.
you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you so much for sitting down with me. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. We had an incredible rally last night in West Virginia. It was beautiful. A tremendous crowd. And I think we're going to win a race, a big race over there. And I guess you could say that our numbers in winning, whether it's for the Senate or for Congress or for governor, has been very good.
How is our country's First Lady doing, and how are your children?
She's doing great. She's a terrific woman. She goes through a lot with all this publicity, but she's a terrific woman. She's doing great.
How do you handle all of that?
Well, it's part of my life. I guess my whole life has been this way. Somebody said, oh, gee, this is always such controversy. And I don't know, I've always had controversy in my life, and I've always succeeded. I've always won. I've always won. It was controversial when I ran, and I won, and now the country is doing better than it's ever done. You know, we have the best economy we've ever had in the history of our country. And more jobs today, literally today, we have more jobs, more people working in the United States than ever before in the history of our country. Black unemployment, Asian unemployment, women unemployment, Hispanic unemployment, historic lows. It's been an amazing thing. And, you know, unfortunately, the media never covers that. They don't like to cover that kind of thing. They like to cover nonsense.
Right.
But it's one of those things.
Well, speaking of yesterday, huge news day. There's a lot breaking today as well. Michael Cohen, tell me about your relationship with him.
Well, he was a lawyer for me for one of many. You know, they always say the lawyer, and then they like to add the fixer. Well, I don't know if he was a fixer. I don't know where that term came from, but he's been a lawyer for me, didn't do big deals, did small deals, not somebody that was with me that much. You know, they make it sound like I didn't live without him. I understood Michael Cohen very well. What turned out he wasn't a very good lawyer, frankly, but he was somebody that was probably with me for about 10 years. And I would see him sometimes, but when I had deals and big deals, I had outside lawyers, and I have a lot of inside lawyers too, in addition to Michael. I always found him to be a nice guy.
He said one story, said you didn't know anything about the payments.
No.
And now he's saying that you directed him to make these payments. Did you direct him to make these payments?
He made the deal. He made the deals. And by the way, he pled to 2 counts that aren't a crime, which nobody understands. I watched a number of shows. Sometimes you get some pretty good information by watching shows. Those 2 counts aren't even a crime. They weren't campaign finance.
Did you know about the payments?
Later on, I knew. Later on. But you have to understand, Ainsley, what he did, and they weren't taken out of campaign finance. That's a big thing. That's a much bigger thing. Did they come out of the campaign? They didn't come out of the campaign. They came from me, and I tweeted about it. You know, I don't know if you know, but I tweeted about the payments. But they didn't come out of campaign. In fact, my first question when I heard about it was, did they come out of the campaign? Because that could be a little dicey. And they didn't come out of the campaign, and that's big. But they weren't. It's not even a campaign violation. If you look at President Obama, he had a massive campaign violation, but he had a different attorney general, and they viewed it a lot differently. You know, we have somebody that they seem to like to go after a lot of Republicans, but he settled his very easily. In fact, I put that out fairly recently. So Obama had it. Other people have it. Almost everybody that runs for office has campaign violations. But what Michael Cohen pled to weren't even campaign related. They weren't crimes.
Why is he doing this?
Because
he was your attorney.
Because he made a great deal. Because he was in another business totally unrelated to me, where I guess there was fraud involved and loans and taxi cabs and all sorts of things. Nothing to do with me, because he had an outside business. He worked for me. Mm-hmm. You could really say it was more or less part-time. He had other businesses. He had other clients. I'm not his only client. And Michael Cohen had, I guess, a taxi business, and somebody reported him for some things in his taxi business, and that's how this started. And they put the 2 counts of campaign violations in there, but a lot of lawyers on television, and also lawyers that I have, say that they're not even crimes.
If you're saying the payments, if they're not illegal, then why would he use that information for a plea deal?
Because he makes a better deal when he uses me, like everybody else. And one of the reasons I respect Paul Manafort so much is he went through that trial. You know, they make up stories. People make up stories. This whole thing about flipping, they call it. I know all about flipping. For 30, 40 years, I've been watching flippers. Everything's wonderful, and then they get 10 years in jail, and they flip on whoever the next highest one is, or as high as you can go. It almost ought to be outlawed. It's not fair, because if somebody's going to spend 5 years like Michael Cohen, or 10 years or 15 years in jail because of a taxi cab industry, because he defrauded some bank, the last 2 were the tiny ones. You know, campaign violations are considered not a big deal, frankly. But if somebody defrauded a bank and he's going to get 10 years in jail or 20 years in jail, but if you can say something bad about Donald Trump and you'll go down to 2 years or 3 years, which is the deal he made, in all fairness to him, most people are going to do that. And I've seen it many times. I've had many friends involved in this stuff. It's called flipping, and it almost ought to be illegal. You get 10 years in jail, but if you say bad things about somebody, in other words, make up stories, if you don't know, make up stories, they just make up lies. Alan Dershowitz said, compose, right? They make up lies. I've seen it many times. They make up things, and now they go from 10 years to they're a national hero. They have a statue erected in their honor. It's not a fair thing, but that's why he did it. He made a very good deal. I mean, for what he did. But I'll tell you that somebody made a better deal. Awand, the IT guy for Schultz, Congresswoman Schultz. He had all the information on Democrats. He had all the information on everybody. He went to jail holding the hands of the Justice Department and the FBI. They sat there together. They were smiling and laughing. And he got nothing. And he stole money. And he had more information on corruption of the Democrats than anybody. And they don't even have his computers and his servers. They just gave him nothing. You saw that. It was on your show. They gave him nothing. Nothing.
Double standard?
Double standard. I mean, he was worse than anybody, in my opinion. He got nothing. He's a Democrat. He got nothing. The reason he got nothing because the Dems are very strong in the Justice Department. I put an attorney general that never took control of the Justice Department, Jeff Sessions, never took control of the Justice Department. And it's a sort of an incredible thing. We have this country going so well. Mike Pompeo is doing incredibly. All of my people, they're doing incredibly. But the whole thing with going on with Justice and FBI, when you see Strzok and his lover Lisa Page, when you see Comey with all the lies that he's told, when you see Mueller with the conflicts, he's so conflicted. Comey's his best friend. He had a really nasty business transaction with me, which he never reported. I've been talking about he never reports it. I mean, you look at the bad things. He wanted the FBI job that Christopher Wray has. Now, Christopher Wray was recommended by Rosenstein. The FBI, I'll tell you what, if you took a poll in the FBI, I guarantee you one thing, I'd do very well.
Are you considering pardoning Paul Manafort?
I have great respect for what he's done in terms of what he's gone through. You know, he worked for Ronald Reagan for years. He worked for Bob Dole. He worked, I guess his firm worked for McCain. He worked for many, many people, many, many years. And I would say what he did, some of the charges they threw against him, every consultant, every lobbyist in Washington probably does. If you look at Hillary Clinton's person, you take a look at the people that worked for Hillary Clinton. I mean, look at the crimes that Clinton did with the emails, and she deletes 33,000 emails after she gets a subpoena from Congress. And this Justice Department does nothing about it. And all of the other crimes that they've done. And they don't. Look at Podesta. Podesta was supposed to be Manafort on steroids. They made him close up his firm. He was going to be indicted the next day, we heard. Never happened. Instead, they would go after Manafort. So, look, I didn't know Manafort well. He wasn't with the campaign long. They got him on things totally unrelated to the campaign. And by the way, they got Cohn on totally unrelated to the campaign. I'm not involved. I wasn't charged with anything. You know, people don't like to say that, but I wasn't charged. But when you look at the corruption on the other side, and they refuse to look at anything. When you don't look at Strzok, where he said basically we're going to take out the president, the insurance policy and everything else. You look at Lisa Page, the two lovers back and forth with these horrible texts. You look at the kind of talk going on about, it's really subversion. And our Justice Department doesn't do anything about it. People would say, oh, but you appointed Jeff Sessions. I said, I did. But I really feel as long as this is going out, I don't have to do this, but I will stay uninvolved, and maybe that's the best thing to do.
Mr. President, a lot of people are frustrated. A lot of your supporters are frustrated with the DOJ, with Jeff Sessions. There are rumors that you're going to fire him after the midterms and Rosenstein. They also want these documents. They're wondering if you will use your power to get these documents released.
At the right time, I think I'm going to have to do the documents. I didn't want to, but I think I'm going to have to. There's such corruption. Before I got here, it's from before I got here. It's the Obama administration. And you look at what happened. They surveilled my campaign. It's very simple. The Pfizer report, the phony fake.
Rosenstein signed the last Pfizer report.
It bothers me. It's always bothered me.
Will you fire him? Will you fire Sessions?
Well, I'll tell you what. As I've said, I wanted to stay uninvolved. But when everybody sees what's going on in the Justice Department, I always put justice now with quotes, it's a very, very sad day. Jeff Sessions recused himself, which he shouldn't have done, or he should have told me. Even my enemies say that Jeff Sessions should have told you that he was going to recuse himself, and then you wouldn't have put him in. He took the job, and then he said, I'm going to recuse myself. I said, what kind of a man is this? And by the way, he was on the campaign. You know, the only reason I gave him the job, because I felt loyalty. He was an original supporter. He was on the campaign. He knows there was no collusion. And what's come out of Manafort? No collusion. What's come out of Michael Cohen? No collusion. This is stuff that they got. How about with Michael Cohen, in all fairness to him, they raid his office at 6 o'clock in the morning? And how about with Manafort? They raid his home at like 5 in the morning, I think on a weekend, and his wife is in bed and they go in with guns? Yeah. This isn't Al Capone.
We sat down with Mr. Trump Friday in the Roosevelt Room, just across from the Oval Office, hoping to explore a presidency at a turning point. Mr. President, thank you for talking with us.
Thank you, Chris, very much.
Let's start with the state of Donald Trump.
Right.
There are a number of stories out there that you're angry about the midterms, about your treatment in the media, about the way you were treated when you were in Paris. One story even said that you were in a, quote, cocoon of bitterness and resentment.
Right.
We'll get into all the details later, but how dark is your mood?
It's very light. It's fake news. It's disgusting fake news. I read a front page story in the Washington Post. They never even call me. Nobody ever calls me. You know, they hear, I don't even think they have sources. I think they just make it up like it's fiction. And I will tell you, I'm extremely upbeat. The White House is running like a well-oiled machine. It's doing really well. I have great people. I will make some changes, but not very many. I'm very happy with my cabinet, other than, you know, a couple of exceptions, and even there I'm not unhappy. And I will tell you that it's so wrong. The reporting about me is so wrong. I'm loving what I'm doing. I did well in France. I did have a problem where I wasn't able to go to a cemetery because the Secret Service would not let me do it.
We'll get into all of this, sir.
No, but I'm just telling you, the Secret Service would not let me do it, and they made it a big deal.
You've said a lot of things there. Let's try to unpack them. There's a lot of talk about staff changes. Your deputy national security advisor was moved out after your wife did something I've never heard of a first lady doing before, publicly calling for her removal. Are you comfortable with the way that went down, where it kind of looked like your wife was firing one of your advisors?
Well, I didn't know the advisor well, really, and I know they had a lot of problems. My wife did a great job in Africa, and she was not treated properly by the press. She really worked so hard. They came to me. They wanted to go a little bit public because that's the way they felt, and I thought it was fine. I met with Mira 2 days ago, and we're going to move her around. She was with me for a long time, although I don't know her. She's really somebody I don't know very well. But we're going to move her around because she's got certain talents. But frankly, she is not, she'll never be put in the United Nations, let me put it that way.
Meaning she's not too diplomatic.
She's not too diplomatic, but she's talented.
Are you happy with Kirstjen Nielsen at DHS?
Well, I like her a lot. I respect her a lot. She's very smart. I want her to get much tougher, and we'll see what happens there. But I want to be extremely tough.
What are the chances she'll be DHS
Well,
secretary?
there's a chance, but there's a chance everybody. I mean, that's what happens in government. You leave, you make a name, you go. The people that have left have done very well. The people that have left have done very well from my White House. I like her very much. I respect her very much. I'd like her to be much tougher on the border, much tougher, period.
Back in July, you said that Chief of Staff John Kelly will be here through 2020. Can you still say that?
I wouldn't. Look, we get along well. There are certain things I love what he does, and there are certain things that I don't like that he does that aren't his strength. It's not that he doesn't do, you know, he works so hard. He's doing an excellent job in many ways. There are a couple of things where it's just not his strength. It's not his fault. It's not his strength.
Such as?
But I haven't even thought about John in terms of this. But John at some point is going to want to move on. John will move on.
So 2020 is no longer written in stone.
It could happen. Yeah, it could be. I mean, it could be. But let's see what happens. I have not. Look, I have 3 or 4 or 5 positions that I'm thinking about. Of that, maybe it's going to end up being 2, maybe. But I need flexibility.
You have already made at least one big change, naming Matt Whitaker as your acting Attorney General. He has a long record of speaking out against the special counsel and his probe.
I could see a scenario where Jeff Sessions is replaced with a recess appointment, and that Attorney General doesn't fire Bob Mueller, but he just reduces his budget so low that his investigation grinds to almost a halt.
The truth is, there was no collusion with the Russians in the Trump campaign.
Did you know, before you appointed him, that he had that record and was so critical of Robert Mueller?
I did not know that. I did not know he took views on the Mueller investigation as such.
And when you found that out?
I don't think it had any effect. If you look at those statements they really can be viewed either way. But I don't think it would have any effect.
Well, he says there's no collusion.
Chris, I'll tell you what.
He says you can starve the investigation.
Right. What do you do when a person's right? There is no collusion. He happened to be right. I mean, he said it. So if he said there is collusion, I'm supposed to be taking somebody that says there is, because then I wouldn't take him for two reasons. But the number one reason is the fact that he would have been wrong. If he said that there's no collusion, he's right.
He is going to have to make, or could potentially make, a lot of big calls in the Mueller investigation. If Mueller decides that he wants to subpoena you, the Attorney General, Whitaker, can block that. If Mueller issues a final report, he can decide how much goes to Congress or doesn't go to Congress. You tweeted this week about, quote, Bob Mueller and his gang of Democrat thugs.
Right.
If Whitaker decides in any way to limit or curtail the Mueller investigation, are you okay with that?
Look, it's going to be up to him. I think he's very well aware politically. I think he's astute politically. He's a very smart person, a very respected person. He's going to do what's right. I really believe he's going to do what's right.
But you won't overrule him if he decides to curtail.
I would not get involved. And all these people that say, I'm going to end the investigation, you know, they've been saying that now for, how long has this witch hunt gone on? It's gone on for what?
Since May of 17.
Okay, but how long have I been looked at? You know when I've been looked at?
Since
from the
July
day
of 2016.
From the day I announced, I was looked at as a candidate with nothing, no proof, with phony people like McCabe and Strzok and his lover. You had Lisa Page, his lover. These people were looking at me. They wanted an insurance policy just in case I won or Hillary lost. And this was the insurance policy. It's a scam. There was no collusion whatsoever, and the whole thing is a scam.
Your team is preparing written answers to questions about...
No, not my team. I'm preparing written answers. I'm the one that does the answer. Yes. Are they writing them out?
Yes.
Yeah, they're writing what I tell them to write.
Are they going to be submitted?
At some point very soon, yes. I've completed them.
So you are submitting...
And it wasn't a big deal. By the way, it wasn't a big deal. The questions were asked and answered. It wasn't a big deal. You know, they make it like I had meetings for many, many hours. I got the questions. I responded. We wrote them out. I read them once. I read them a second time. We made some changes. That's it. They're very simple. You know why? I did nothing wrong.
Here's my question, though. You are submitting written answers to the special counsel about the issue of collusion, but not on obstruction of justice.
Well, there was no obstruction of justice.
Let me, if I may, sir, just
I think they probably agree with that. And all you have to do is look at Article 2.
Is that your final position, that there's going to be no sit-down interview and nothing, written or in person, on obstruction?
I would say probably. Probably. I mean, I can change my mind, but probably. I think we've wasted enough time on this witch hunt, and the answer is probably. We're finished.
What are the odds? 1 in 100?
I don't do odds. I gave very
you ran
detailed
casinos, sir.
You're right, and very successfully, actually. We gave very, very complete answers to a lot of questions that I shouldn't have even been asked. And I think that should solve the problem. I hope it solves the problem. If it doesn't, you know, I'll be told and we'll make a decision at that time. But probably this is the end.
Turkish President Erdogan says that he has shared a tape with the U.S. and other countries that is of the killing of Jamal Khashoggi inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Have you, one, either heard the tape yourself or been briefed on it? And if so, to your mind, what does it show?
We have the tape. I don't want to hear the tape. No reason for me to hear the tape.
Why don't you want to hear it, sir?
Because it's a suffering tape. It's a terrible tape. I've been fully briefed on it. There's no reason for me to hear it. In fact, I said to the people, should I? They said, you really shouldn't. There's no reason. I know everything that went on the tape without having to.
And what happened?
It was very violent, very vicious, and terrible.
A month ago, you said you had spoken with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and that he had told you directly that he had no knowledge of this.
That's right. And still says that.
But we now know that some of the people closest to him, some of his closest advisors were part of this. Question, did MBS lie to you, sir?
I don't know. You know, who can really know? But I can say this. He's got many people now that say he had no knowledge.
What if the Crown Prince, speaking to you, the President of the United States, directly lied to you about
Well, he told me that he had nothing to do with it. He told me that, I would say, maybe 5 times at different points.
But what if he's lying?
As recently as a few days ago.
Do you just live with it because you need him?
Well, will anybody really know? All right, will anybody really know? But he did have certainly people that were reasonably close to him and close to him that were probably involved. You saw we put on very heavy sanctions, massive sanctions on a large group of people from Saudi Arabia. But at the same time, we do have an ally, and I want to stick with an ally that in many ways has been very good.
So if Congress were to move to either try to cut off any U.S. involvement in the war in Yemen or to block any arms sales, you won't go along with
Well, I want to see Yemen end, but it takes 2 to tango. Iran has to end it also. And Iran is a different country than it was when I took over. It's far weakened because of what I did with the Iran, so-called Iran deal, Iran nuclear deal, which was one of the great rip-offs of all time. But I want Saudi to stop, but I want Iran to stop also.
When Democrats flipped the House back in 2006 and picked up 30 seats, President Bush 43 had a news conference the next day and said, we had a thumping. Last week, in this election, the House picked up so far its 36 seats. It may be on the way to 40 seats. And your reaction was that it was almost a complete victory.
I won the Senate. You don't mention that.
Well,
excuse me. I won the Senate.
I understand that.
I think they said 88 years.
But this was this is a historically big defeat in the House. You lost 36, maybe 40 seats. Some would argue that it was a thumping, and I want to talk about some of the ways in which you lost. You lost in traditionally Republican suburbs, not only around liberal cities like Philadelphia and D.C., but also red state big cities like Houston and Oklahoma City. You lost among suburban women. You lost among independents. And in 3 key states that I think you remember pretty well, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, you lost both the governor's seats and the Senate seats.
Are you ready? I won the Senate. And that's historic, too. Because if you look at presidents in the White House, it's almost never happened where you won a seat. We now have 53 as opposed to 51. And we have 53 great senators in the U.S. Senate. We won. That's a tremendous victory. Nobody talks about that. That's a far greater victory than it is for the other side. Number 2, I wasn't on the ballot.
Well, wait, you kept saying.
I said, look at me. I said, look at me.
Pretend I'm on the ballot.
But I have people, and you see the polls, how good they are. I have people that won't vote unless I'm on the ballot, okay? And I wasn't on the ballot. And almost everybody that I won, I think they said it was 10 out of 11, and I went against President Obama and Oprah Winfrey and Michelle Obama in a great state called Georgia for the governor, and it was all stacked against Brian, and I was the one that went for Brian, and Brian won. Look at Florida. I went down to Florida. Rick Scott won, and he won by a lot. I don't know what happened to all those votes that disappeared at the very end. And if I didn't put a spotlight on that election before it got down to the 12,500 votes, he would have lost that election, okay, in my opinion. He would have lost. They were taking that election away from him. Rick Scott won Florida. You have to say, excuse me, a man named Ron DeSantis is now your governor, your new governor of Florida. A wonderful man named DeWine is your governor of the great state of Ohio. Remember what they used to say before my election? You cannot win unless you win Ohio. I won Ohio. We had a tremendous set of victories. You look at the victories.
But if you can't carry, and you certainly didn't carry it 2 weeks ago, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, you're not going to get reelected.
I didn't run. I wasn't running. My name wasn't on the ballot. There are many people that think I don't like Congress. that like me a lot. I get it all the time. Sir, we'll never vote unless you're on the ballot. I get it all the time. People are saying, sir, I will never vote unless you're on the ballot. I say, no, no, go and vote. Well, what do you mean? As much as I try and convince people to go vote, I'm not on the ballot.
What really made it more than enough
It's enough.
was the dismissive wave. Interview over.
But I want to know your opinions. You're the President of the United States.
It's enough. Thank you. Thank you very much.
CBS's John Dickerson was thank you'd right out the door. 27 years earlier, it was Donald Trump who walked out.
There's nothing that we didn't discuss on the phone, Donald.
After tough questions from CNN about the financial health of his casinos.
Back to the negative.
Back to the negative.
Back to the.
You know what? Do this interview with somebody else.
Well, we talked about this yesterday on the phone. This is exactly what we talked about.
Do the interview with somebody else. Really. Yeah, you don't need this. Do it with somebody else. And have a good time.
Instead of thank you, it was good luck.
I think it's very unfair reporting. Good luck.
I disagree with you. Sorry you feel that way.
Actually, Trump's walkouts are rare when you consider how many hundreds, even thousands of interviews he's done over the years. He's never come close to terminating me, though as a presidential candidate, Trump walked off on 2 Ohio TV reporters in a single day.
19 days out from the election, you've been labeled a racist, you've been called a sexist.
Thank you very much.
How do you respond to that?
I am the least racist person you've ever met.
This after a woman came out accusing Trump of touching her.
Another woman came out today about the U.S. Open. They revoked her today. Can you answer allegations about that?
I know nothing about that.
About the U.S. Open allegations?
No, I don't know.
Trump clearly knew nothing about fake rapper Ali G when he sat down with Sacha Baron Cohen's character, who asked him to invest in
these ice cream gloves.
Trump declined to invest, but did it without taking off the gloves.
Good luck, folks. It's been nice seeing you. You take care of yourself, okay?
Is he going to be in on that?
Well, it sounds like an interesting...
We've got like...
Trump tends to be harder on the microphone.
Do it with somebody else. And have a good time.
Than the interviewer.
But I want to know your opinion.
Jeannie Mo, CNN.
It's enough.
New York.